Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, January 9th, 2022. The double deuce. Joining me today, Zachary Burgess.
It's not. You haven't got double deuce yet. You've got 200 more years to go.
Well, for that one. And Robert Kemp.
This is also the 309th podcast.
Wow. Ninth. Yes, New Year time.
I mean, yeah, first proper podcast of the year. If the last sort of podcast. Wait, when did we do the last podcast? Yeah, it was still December.
It was
still December. Yeah, we sometimes wait for the new year for our not game of the year, in this case, podcast, but not this time
because of timing. It was just timing based.
Yeah, it's always timing
convenience.
Based. We are a rhythm game of podcasts.
Now we're back in the rhythm with a regularly scheduled podcast.
Yeah, boy! Dan dropping hot rhymes and I'll be the hype man in the back. Whoa! You tell it, Dan! Drop it like it's hot!
Well, I've dropped the intro now.
We have to talk about The Matrix.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it.
Okay, how do you want me to deliver this then? In like,
well, in non-spoiler form, ideally, I think is the answer. In general, not just for our purposes, for the world at large.
For the world at large. I mean, it's interesting to see what the world at large how the world at large has responded to this.
Well, really,
film,
the only thing I've seen about it in terms of the way I receive news, which is YouTube thumbnails,
right? Yeah,
is one. Yeah. The only one I've seen just says the new Matrix film should not exist. So I mean, that's about what I've determined.
If you generally search for it, that is what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of like thumbnails that say, "This is bad. Is it that bad? Is it like what were they thinking?" kind of stuff. Like that seems to be but then there are defenders. There's quite a lot of defenders as well. It's like
the Red Letter Media thumbnail is just Jay with his head in his hands with the Matrix like overlaid over the top, and that obviously I haven't watched it.
Also, related YouTube adverts, of course. Maybe one of the indicators of maybe this film isn't that good is what brand has partnered to sponsor the Matrix film on YouTube.
Nokia? No.
Not this time, no.
Ray-Bans?
It's Papa John's.
Okay.
Yep.
What kind of green topping are they putting on this pizza then? Like,
who knows?
Is it like very small bits of pepper? But I mean, they're arranged in line.
If we imagine that like the ranking of pizza is equal to the ranking of the quality of this movie, then maybe that would indicate what's going on here.
I mean, that's probably not far off.
Oh, really? Wow.
It's my least favorite.
I had the choice.
I
had the choice yesterday. I could choose. I went to the cinema. I was like, shall I see The Matrix or shall I see Spider-Man? And I chose Spider-Man. I feel like I made the right choice there.
Well, yeah, still haven't seen that. But yeah, that sounds like the right choice. Like, I kind of... man, it's one of those films that sets itself up with quite a lot of good ideas. Like, I can't really fault the thought process in a way behind it. There's some interesting stuff going on, but I think the execution doesn't work. And the film actually, like, to the point, like, my key takeaway from the film is that the film itself explains its own problem. Because...
Right.
Okay, minor spoilers, because this happens pretty early on. You find this out pretty early on. Keanu Reeves is basically, like... the setup is he's working for a game company who developed the first 3 Matrixes as a game. The first 3 Matrix films. So it was a trilogy of games.
So they're ripping off the story of Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed. Yeah. Black Flag.
I was like, where have I heard this before? Wait.
Yeah. I mean, his company's called like they didn't really think very hard. I think his company's called Deus Ex, which is like which is the worst. It's like
brilliant.
Just to make it real confusing. It's like Deus Ex made the Matrix. Yeah. So, but then they're having like this meeting where they're talking about like that Warner Brothers has forced them to make The Matrix 4
inside the film that is this film.
Yeah,
which is this film,
which is hilarious for starters. And they're like, "Well, Keanu didn't want to do it," and it's like, "Yeah, but we're being forced to do it." It's like, "So we're doing it, and if we don't make it, someone else is going to." So he's like, "Ugh, all right." So they're having this board meeting about it, and they have this board meeting, and it says, and they're talking about, well, how do we beat bullet time? Like that was the most important thing. How do we go one up on that? Well, we need to come up with
in
something,
the film.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
It's like we need to go do something. What you need to do something bigger and better, and they don't. It's like they know their own problem and they don't succeed. I don't think the action.
So they just lampshade it.
Yeah, exactly. The action sequences generally aren't filmed as well. I think there's problems with inconsistent. I guess I'd call it like frame times, like not frame times in the gaming sense, but what's it called? Like shutter speed. That's it. So like in like when they film cars in Top Gear, they use a very tight shutter speed, so the image looks real sharp and not very motion blurry. But it seems like there are times in this film where even in the same sequence there will be a shot that seems to have a very long shutter speed, so things will suddenly look weirdly blurry compared to the shot you just showed us a couple seconds ago. It's like there's an amateurishness to how the thing looks at times, and it's like that really threw me. It's like did they not have the budget for this film? Like, I really don't think they did.
I mean, was there far too much CG as well, as we predicted when we first saw the trailer?
I imagine most of it was replaced with CG. Like there was very little actual theatrical. There was a lot of. That's not strictly true. There's combat, right? There's people beating up other people, but it's sort of shot in that. The Matrix was shot like really cool in the way that like they often pulled back from what was going on, so you could see what was going on. And this is in that more modern, the cameras are quite close and there's a lot of cuts. And maybe that's because, Keanu probably can't fight as well as he used to.
Probably.
But it's not just him. It's like they do that with every character. And there's a few new characters, obviously, as they had to be. And yeah, as a result of that, they seem to have forgotten the cool, I think, and that's my biggest problem with it. It's like they've forgotten the cool. They've forgotten what made The Matrix so special.
But unfortunately, that's also the meta-narrative of this whole film and the concept. It's like,
it's on theme to be uncool.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And as a result, it's so weird because that whole idea, in a weird way, is super appealing. Like it's just
right.
It's just like, oh yeah, no, you're having a punch back at being forced to make this film by leaning into it,
by deliberately making a bad film.
Yeah, and I find that
right.
I kind of find that hilarious and brilliant. But in the same
maybe.
But at the same time, I'm like, I really just want to watch the first Matrix again.
I know.
Well, we always know.
But maybe they know. I mean, maybe that's the point, that they can't. That's what that meeting inside thing is about. It's not just bullet time. It's like we can't. We tried with the sequels, but we couldn't recapture what made the first one special. So let's not even just try.
Let's not try.
Let's talk about how it's impossible.
Let's do something else. Yeah. I mean, I personally didn't feel that it was like one of the narratives around this film is that it's a bit woke. Right, Lana Wachowski's obviously gone through a transition and is, there's only one of them now. Like, it's not both the Wachowskis working on this.
Sure.
So, I think.
But they say that the original Matrix film works as a metaphor for the trans experience anyway.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I personally didn't feel that was too heavy-handed. I thought, or that there was too much going on there, honestly. But I was sat next to someone who did come away saying, I feel like I've been beating over the head with a woke stick. And it's like,
oh, really?
So it feels like it's been hitting people in different ways. But hey, what a weird thing this film is. What a strange thing. Also, zombies.
Zombies.
As if it couldn't be any more of a cliche of itself in a way. But let's do the one thing that we haven't done: zombies, or swarm mode, as it's now called.
Okay, I think I know enough from that.
Yeah,
that's good. I will.
I won't detail much more.
I will definitely watch it. It's not like I'll definitely watch it, but maybe that's a TV one.
Yeah. They do go to great lengths to explain. It's a bit like an anime. There's like exposition dumps like all the way, and it's
like Metal Gear Matrix.
kinda, yeah.
Psycho Mantis.
Hind D.
I mean, do we need to have the film section be talking about films we actually watched? Because we didn't talk about the films we actually watched directly after the last podcast.
Yeah, I need you to. I mean, I've already talked at length about Sonic the Hedgehog and Detective Pikachu on this podcast.
Yeah.
Now you two can weigh in.
They were fine.
I mean, I don't think there's that much to say.
I mean, I think by like video game film standards, obviously they're like very high. by like any other film standards, they're like yeah, fine.
I think Detective Pikachu definitely holds up better than Sonic does.
Well, the thing about Sonic, Detective Pikachu, it was a better film, but that doesn't mean it's a great film. But no, I would say definitely not great. But the thing Sonic has is Jim Carrey's performance, right? Which I guess is kind of good for nostalgia, maybe, if you remember, like
Good
when
Jim
he used to
Carrey,
do those
yeah.
when Jim Carrey did Jim Carrey. So I'm not sure if that's just because I liked Ace Ventura.
Oh yeah. I mean,
but,
it's amazing that know after all this time that he has just come back and done that again. That it's just like, you kind of thought that era was done, and no, he's back. Yeah. It's like and it's a good Jim
and it works
Carrey,
for Robotnik.
Yeah.
And it's not like he needed to be younger to be Robotnik. The older he gets, probably the better it'll be for Robotnik.
Probably.
In a way. So that works. And Detective Pikachu doesn't have anything like that. Like seeing Bill Nye or whatever isn't as fun as like as the baddie. It's just like see that in loads of kids' films and that sort of thing. And like I say, the thing I found distracting constantly in Detective Pikachu was just because I live in London. It was just like every single scene. It's like, where is this film? Like
this is so
the whole film, the whole movie is just London, but sort of dressed up a bit.
Ready Player One are a bit like that though as well. Like there are like shots in the real world. There's a lot of London in it, even though it's supposed to be like future LA or something. It's
so I found that a little bit distracting, but then I don't know, not there was that much more going on, but
Detective Pikachu is the biggest problem with Pikachu has always been the fact that it's not much of a detective story. Like they tend to just stumble upon or things happen to them rather than them detectorizing.
Yeah, or they just get told where to go.
Yeah,
like you should go over here and look at this.
Well, I mean, in fairness, that is kind of what detectives do, right? They get a lead, they are told a lead, and they go do it.
It's kind of a bit random leads, or it's like you should go to this underground fight club for some reason because someone might be there. Maybe
go to the Roundhouse, which was probably actually the Roundhouse.
I think so,
and that had probably I'm the one who would know because I'm more familiar with Pokemon, I guess. But like that probably had the best subtle reference in the cage fight.
What's your subtle?
What was
reference?
that?
When the Pikachu versus Charizard fight starts up and he just gets smacked immediately while he's psyching himself up in the classic sucker punch maneuver. The announcer says "taken out with one hit," which is a line from Pokemon Stadium.
Oh, I see. Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's good.
So that's a good reference.
From the original, from N64?
Yeah, from N64 Pokemon Stadium. Or maybe two. Okay. No, I think it probably is in one, actually.
Taken out in one hit.
Even though it wasn't.
Classic.
In the film.
That's a deep cut. No.
He was totally still fine.
And Sonic, in a weird way, the I'm going to put quotation marks around the word humor was a little. I found that way more grating the second time round.
I mean, I still think the original trailer meow meme moment is still hilarious. But it's funnier when he looked insane, like with human teeth and stuff.
Sure. I will always have that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still possibly the best moment in the film, which I guess is why it was trailered, but...
I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Apart from maybe the end. The very end with Robotnik.
Which was a weird thing to get trailered, essentially.
Yeah.
We're going to show the sting for the second film in the trailer of the first film. Essentially. Except not the actual sting. The actual sting was Tails, of course.
Mm. And again, I don't think they lent into what makes them good, right? Like there just wasn't enough Sonicness to it, and that was its core problem. Yeah, Sonic's in like almost every frame, but like it's not a very Sonic production, if that makes sense. There's not a lot of like musical cues. There's one at the beginning and one at the end.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Um,
That's a shame. Even in Pokemon, they could have used more Pokemon music-y stuff.
I mean, the badniks aren't massively.
Yeah, the generic ass robots.
Yeah, they're not particularly referential.
I mean, maybe that's coming in the second film.
Maybe
when he has to make new shit on a mysterious alien planet.
I mean, there's the bit where Sonic randomly calls him Eggman, and it's like, why? There's no reference to eggs anyway,
Well, I mean,
unless his like little white bots are kind of eggy, but they're not. That's not really made a thing of at any other point in the film, so it sounds really out of place.
It seems like maybe that was a thing that got cut at some point.
Yeah,
it's like maybe Sonic was going to make more references to the egg shape of those robots.
Yeah, possibly.
Because also, apparently, Sonic is very familiar with birds. Giant birds.
What? Oh, well, I guess...
From right at the start.
Oh, yeah, I guess Longclaw, I suppose. Yeah. Honestly, Longclaw.
It's very lazy. And now Tails is going to show up.
Of course, the world is waiting with bated breath for the return of Big the Cat.
Well, I mean, he should have already been hidden somewhere in this first film, right? Because that's what they do.
Oh, man. I mean, I've never looked at one of those, like, here's all the Easter eggs you missed, like, videos for this. But, yeah, Big has to be in it somewhere. Like, just like, something in the shape of his eyes or something.
Yeah, or just a shadow.
Yeah. Froggy.
The big mystery is how is it possible? How are they going to make the Mario movie work? Because when the Lego movie was being made, it's like, how is that going to work? And then it was great. So it's like, is it possible?
Yeah, but Lego is well easy.
I don't know.
Yeah, Lego's more of a blank slate in a weird way. Like Mario actually has legacy now.
That's true.
And they, that's what we're looking at with Sonic, right? It's just like it's not like Sonic, really, I guess.
And like, I guess Lego, like, they could have shamelessly looked at the Traveller's Tales games and been like, oh right, these guys with their slapstick, maybe not, but maybe prior to them getting voices, it's it's like here's how they do. It's just slapstick animation, I suppose, which I guess isn't unique to Lego.
Yeah, but they kind of did do that in the Lego movie.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? It's like they did that in the games, and it's like it's not really, it's not necessarily a unique form of comedy. They just
no.
It's like you can get away with making a slightly different version of Sonic for the film because there's been different versions of Sonic anyway throughout the years of the games. Whereas with Mario, it's been incredibly similar every time, and that's going to very limit what you can do.
It's like if you actually made a Zelda thing, right? It's like you need to pick a timeline.
Well,
or come up with a new one.
Or you don't need to pick a timeline and just make sure there's no reference to where it would fit in a timeline at any point.
Yeah, just make a new one.
Or you just say it's 10,000 years in the future and be done. Problem solved.
But then Zelda would be even weirder because Link is permanently silent, right? Apart from going, ugh!
Yeah, well, so is Mario mostly, in terms of actual phrases, actual full sentences.
Yeah.
But we already know he's going to sound like he's from Brooklyn, right?
No.
Swing your arms from side to side.
I mean, we can only hope. But I don't think Chris Pratt can do that voice.
What did I watch? Noam and I watched Onward, that Pixar film that came out in lockdown. And we didn't, in fairness, we didn't recognize Chris Pratt as one of the characters in that. Like, I think he plays the kind of older brother who's a bit of a, I wouldn't say a stoner, but he's a D&D guy, if you know what I mean. He drives like a van that looks like it was ripped off an Iron Maiden album. And and he plays that sort of character, and it's like, yeah, to be honest, we didn't peg it was him. So it's not. I guess it's not his first rodeo doing voice acting for films.
We shall see.
But it was. Hey, it's me. I'm a D&D master.
That's the one voice he could do is just Mario. That's why he was cast. Right. Yeah.
Onward's also
Film
pretty
section.
good. Even if it
Onward. Yeah, I saw. Oh no, I was going to say I saw Encanto, but I don't think that actually is Pixar. I think it's just Disney animation. Or whatever.
Oh right, okay,
But that,
yeah.
But that was good.
I think Luca was Pixar's last.
Yeah, I saw that too. That was good. It's just not.
I think I'm getting a bit tired of Pixar's heartstring pulling, right? Like every film has to have a hook like that. And in fairness to Onward, it's a little less of that than it has been in their recent history.
Right.
But it is still there.
It's part of their formula, isn't it? Yeah.
Someone has to have died, you know.
There's not much you can do with, like, the generic plots of kids' movies. They kind of all have to be that exact same story. Mysterious parental figure dies / isn't there / disappears, and then adventure happens.
You've got to come up with the family friendly version of daddy issues.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, Big Hero 6 is very similar. On
Yep.
that, you know.
That's one of the other ones I was thinking of.
But they didn't just throw in a dad death, did they? No, let's throw in a brother death as well.
Same thing.
Yeah, let's just pile it slightly higher. I do love Big Hero 6 though. That's a great film. Pile them high. That's my film session.
Yeah, I think that is the film section.
Spider-Man was pretty good. Won't go into it at all. So, but definitely worth a watch. I'd say it's probably let's see. Yeah, definitely the best Marvel. Although it's Sony, of course, and it's mostly Sony, but it is MCU, right?
Yeah.
It's probably the best MCU film since, the Avengers stuff, Infinity, whatever it was, Endgame.
Okay. Well, I really enjoyed Shang-Chi, so that's...
Yeah, it's better. Shang-Chi degenerated at the end into a CGI fest, I enjoy... the main thing I like about Shang-Chi is the casting, right? Awkwafina. Yeah. And even the main guy, he was really good. But, like, in terms of the actual film, it was, like, fine. In my opinion, kind of saved by how great the cast is.
I'm a sucker for a bit of an origin story, you know me.
Yeah, but with Spider-Man, what they've been doing is with this time, Spider-Man, the third generation of Spider-Man films, is like really draw out the origin story into a giant like trilogy of high school films, and this is the conclusion of the origin story, which is quite cool, combined with
I guess
as you've seen from the trailer, multiverse stuff.
I guess other than Avengers, Marvel haven't really done any series more than 3. If you see what I mean, there's no solo film that's more than 3 until Thor comes along, because like Thor's going to be the 4th, isn't it? Is that right? Love and Thunder will be the 4th.
Oh no, 4th. That would be the 4th. Yeah.
So yeah,
that's true.
It's like they might stop with Spider-Man. I don't know, but.
No,
he'll be a character in other films for sure, but like maybe it will be the end of Spider-Man as a Spider-Man film. But maybe that Sony won't want that. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. I haven't seen it. I don't know what the situation is. All I know is that it's kind of this is the setup for the next proper phase, right? This is it getting going.
Yeah, pretty much. Although they'll find a way that you won't have had to have watched it. I guess maybe. I don't know, but. Obviously, Doctor Strange is in it, as you'll know from the trailer. And the next phase, there's a Doctor Strange movie, right? Multiverse of Madness. So
yes,
it's all going to be multiverse stuff, and this is the start of that, right? Yeah. That's not a spoiler because that's in the trailer, pretty much.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, check it out. It's a good one.
The only trouble with this is, like, if you know about the comic books situation, it's all heading toward the whole multiverse situation.
Yeah,
how that plays out in the comic books every time they do this kind of thing is just like it gets real bad.
Yeah,
the way they try and wrap up multiverse ideas in the comic book series has always been just horrible disasters, where it's like, this doesn't make any sense, and you've just like, you're killing and unkilling random characters constantly.
Because they can.
Because they can. I mean, they've already technically done that in the films, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they already started, like, they had multiverse stuff almost starting in Endgame, right? And then they had Loki go off into a different universe, or go into the time cops or whatever they are, whatever they're called, and then he's at the end of the universe at the end of that series where all the timelines are converging and stuff. So it'll all come together, I think. But yeah, I know what you mean. It always ends up a total mess because the rules never make any sense. But I mean, what else are they going to do? They've got to, because there's no way to top the.
I mean, as long as I think the main problem with the comic book versions of this concept is like it's not necessarily the actual way it wraps up the multiverse idea or anything. It's like what they get left with at the end. Because in comic book lands, you use this kind of situation for rebooting characters.
For rebooting.
Cause a reset.
Yeah.
And that's where the problems lie. If you try and reboot someone into something that people don't like, and then you have to.
But that's ironically, that's what's happened with Spider-Man, and that's exactly what this film deals with. Obviously, is in a funny way. So check it out, especially if you've seen the prior Spider-Mans.
Oh, I mean, I want to ask, but I don't want to ask because I know what they do to some extent. But now I'm thinking like, but what about Into the Spider-Verse? Like, is that somehow wrapped in? It's like that would be amazing.
Yeah. And there's a trailer for Into the Spider-Verse 2 Part 1, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, excited for that.
End of this year, isn't it? It's too early to get hype, but still hype.
Yeah, hype. All right, we better switch to video games.
Had we?
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
We better switch to video games, but not news.
Yeah, because there's no news, like, pretty much. It's like PSVR 2 is like the one thing.
Right.
Other than the world's slow collapse into NFT hell.
I mean, we can talk about that slightly as well.
Yeah.
How apparently every publisher is just fully on board with making money out of nothing, because of course they are.
Yeah, Konami have said they're in, EA have said they're in, Ubisoft have already tried and failed to do something. Square are the other biggies.
I mean, the Square one was the one that I'd read most about, because I actually saw their like whole weird New Year's like investor letter or something, I guess, where they actually went into it quite a lot, where they were just like, and of course the thing about the Square one is like they more or less basically say, you know why people aren't making mods for our games? Because they're not getting paid. And it's like, I'm not sure you understand mods or like how getting paid works.
Yeah, that's not really the spirit of mods, but
and also
to
Bethesda already tried that with paid mods, and we all know how well that went.
Yeah, nobody really likes it.
And also, if you want people to mod your game, make your games moddable, I guess. Because what can you even think of a Square game that's actually had a significant mod scene?
Not intentionally.
No.
I mean, I know the Final Fantasy PC releases have had mods made for them, but that's not because the games were designed for them.
No.
It's like people tore them apart to achieve that stuff.
So how do NFTs work with games?
I don't even know. Like, I sort of understand. I can sort of vaguely get them in video games in the sense that, okay, what if they actually made a unique cosmetic item?
Yeah, exactly. So
that
you
only
could
one
make
person could own
an artisan TF2 hat, right?
Yeah.
That you make in a 3D blender or something, and then you sell it to one person, and then they can trade it to other people, but there can only be one.
Yeah, exactly. I in a way that is something somehow more tangible than NFTs on their own, right? Yeah. It's like this actually ties to not a physical thing still, but a thing at least, a usable thing.
Well, the thing that I saw that was like maybe was the best take on it that I'd seen was in the Penny Arcade strip about it, where Tycho was talking to Ubisoft, and he says like, you know what you can sell me that's a digital good that I want an NFT for? An actual fucking video game.
Wow, yeah, so someone had just one copy of it. Is this like the Wu-Tang album?
Not even like that. Just like have an actual digital rights management system that actually allows you to resell games because they're actually, NFTs and therefore properly encrypted and everything.
I mean,
so you actually could physically have a copy that is resellable legit.
I mean, yeah.
And that argument has been brought up several times by people who like NFTs, where it's like, NFTs are just the first step on the road to having proper digital rights management, where we will actually be able to second-hand sell games on every platform and all this. And it's like, yeah, probably not, though.
Maybe, but none of that feels. No, I guess that's the whole point. But yeah, a bit of my head is just always like, but please, could we just not involve the blockchain in anything?
But that's too much integrated into the whole system.
Yeah.
And, then quantum computers will happen and it'll all be irrelevant because encryption will get fucked at that point.
I kind of hope we don't get there. Yeah.
I don't think that's too soon. I think we've got a while before the quantum computers break all the encryption.
It'll be the end of the world when quantum is solved.
I mean, you can technically buy quantum CPUs at this point, but not, really useful ones.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing to worry about is that it has been solved in somewhere in the NSA and it somehow leaks.
Oh, damn.
That would be the conspiracy theory, that the US government have already got quantum computers that can break encryption.
Seems like a very likely conspiracy theory. As soon as quantum computers became real enough.
What, and you reckon they're just spinning the story about them needing backdoors in companies and paying them a lot of money to put backdoors into...
Well, I mean, that's just...
No, they have that as well.
Yeah, that's just the backup system.
Might as well. Yeah, it's cheaper than developing quantum computing to just force everyone to do it.
I mean, that would be a pretty funny end to the blockchain story. It's just like, once we get quantum computers, it all becomes completely irrelevant, so all that just goes away.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be, like... Yeah, if you're one of these like heavy investors and you're still in at the cusp, right? You have to be so shrewd to be like, sell it now,
just get it all out.
Yeah, it'll be like the housing market collapse again.
Yeah,
where one company saw it coming.
And at this point, that's kind of what you have to hope is going to happen, because it doesn't seem like they're going to go away on their own. Well, I mean, or they're not going to. It seems like, at least in video games, these video game companies trying to get in on it are probably not going to succeed, at least, but they're going to try.
Well, the art fad of NFTs is over, right? And now we're in the problem where it's like people are like suddenly going, okay, is there a practical use for this crap? And so far they're struggling. The bit that crossed my mind with this is, do you remember when they were talking about Destiny, like before it even came out, and they were talking about how guns would have stories?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, maybe you could actually somehow like rope that system into NFTs and blockchains, right? So guns do have an actual story behind them because it's passed through these hands and these players did this thing, which is kind of interesting, maybe, if those guns were legitimately unique. But then there's a bit in my head that's just like, you could just do all that in a database.
I mean, the whole problem with
you don't need a blockchain. Just do it.
The whole problem with this idea, as far as like how they want to make modding a part of this, essentially make user generated content matter or whatever. It's just like, user generated content is shit. And then they can't. No one's ever going to be able to make like user-generated content of a quality that would actually match with like a Destiny 2 gun or whatever. Or, well, I mean, they can.
They might.
But it would take so much effort that you might as well just fucking get an actual job and get paid to do it.
I mean, that is one of the reasons modders do mod, though, isn't it? Like, they want to get picked up. They want to build a portfolio. Yeah.
That is your point there, Rob, that just put it in a database. It's like the blockchain is a distributed database, right? And the idea of that is that no one can take the thing away from you arbitrarily, right? But for a game, ultimately the
game will get
the developers of the game are in control. The developers of the game are in control. So the fact that they have a centralized database,
but that's the problem
for these
most
items
NFTs
isn't
anyway.
Really a problem, right?
That's the problem with most NFTs anyway, though. Like the art fad of NFTs are just literally URLs.
The good old
that's
right
all
click.
they are. They're not.
They're
not the data of the JPEG or anything like that. They're just
So whoever owns the server can change what's at that URL.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can own that URL, I guess, but you still don't. And that server could catch on fire, and then that token is only the token exists, not the thing it points to. And it's like I don't fully understand if like NFTs can like be changed in that way. Like, can you move that URL ever? Like, or is that literally?
You could do a redirect on there and just put a 301 on there, move permanently. I mean, that's so dumb.
It's so dumb.
You just put the same URL in a different token. It's like what?
It's like it feels like the whole NFT thing and blockchain to some degree. Like it just always feels like it's a
solution looking for a problem. Like,
well, not just that, but it's like it feels like the older generation, say, like people who like physical things, people who like actual scarcity and rarity and things like that. Like trying to clamber back to the good old days. It's like let's impose the restrictions that the digital age deliberately got rid of. And it's like
right, exactly, yeah,
like for commercial gain.
Yeah,
and
but
it's like it rubs me up such the wrong way.
I mean, like conceptually, it might kind of seem like that, but like, there's no way those people are the ones doing all the programming to make it happen. It's
absolutely not.
It's people exploiting those people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost certainly it, right? It's a smart youngster that thought, you know what, the boomers are going to love this, and
because they're dumb and don't understand technology in any way.
Boomer bait.
Yeah, pretty much.
Gah.
What a mess.
What a load of nonsense.
The world will end with nothing left at the end of the world other than a warehouse full of Nvidia cards just whirring away, pointlessly calculating NFTs.
Yep. It would just be one giant blockchain. That would be the only thing that exists.
When an alien race comes and finds us in the future and they find this warehouse and it just says like error cube or something on it.
The error cube.
The error cube.
Maybe the entire current state and future state of the entire universe is just a blockchain.
Oh no!
Get back to
living in a we're in the matrix, everyone.
We're in the matrix. Anyway,
don't take the. Have you ever? I know that like the whole red pill, blue pill thing, right? Like, has anyone ever in history been given a red or a blue pill that is so shiny? Like those pills,
the ones they're super shiny. They weren't that shiny in the original film.
Well, the original ones were like those, like translucent, right? They were like those liquid-filled pills.
Oh, the jelly ones that are
more like a jelly
swallow,
baby,
right? Yeah.
But no, they're like shiny metal-looking things in this new one.
Yeah.
Those are the tracking devices, basically. It's not actually. I mean, literally, they are in tracking devices in the original Matrix.
I don't know how they work, but I mean, they've never really explained that. But you eat them, and it somehow lets them find your signal of the physical location. Somehow. Oh my god, I love the original Matrix stuff.
Yeah, it's a really good film. It was a great film.
I need to watch the Animatrix again.
Yeah, I feel like I've only seen that like once, probably.
I mean,
or parts of it twice, maybe.
I mean, like half of it is good.
Yeah,
but that half is really good.
So that's the news. PlayStation VR 2. Do we want to talk about that? Is there anything to say apart from the specs look good?
Yeah, it's setting up to be possibly the best headset ever made so far. You know, it's got a 4K OLED screen powering a higher resolution to each eye than a Valve Index, and you know the Valve Index is the most expensive set you can try and get hold of right now. So yeah,
I mean it's all great. They just need to ship enough PS5 so that people can actually.
Yeah, so people, because I wonder what the percentage share was of PS4 people who opted into PSVR. Like, because they must be running those numbers, right? It's like PS4 VR 2 is almost definitely cool, but we can only expect to make this amount to hit this amount of market cap, probably. And if that market cap is already lower because they can't ship enough PS5s,
and it's also like they're looking at people who bought the first version, and they're like, how many of these people are actually going to spend this much again on a new one?
Well, and how much is it going to be if its specs are as good as they sound?
Yeah,
just how pricey is this thing?
I'd rather they made it as good as possible, to be honest. I think.
Yeah, in a world when you could pick up a Quest 2, which is a pretty well-performing headset, even though it's been out for a few years now. It's like for £300, which is still
That's because
it's not chump change, but it's cheap for a VR set.
It's because it's heavily subsidized by the evil Meta Corporation. Because they want to get into VR and own VR, don't they? Meta, I guess. So that's Zuckerberg's dream. So if Sony can outsell that, then that would be good for everyone.
I dream in Meta.
Have they not made a shitty Second Life ripoff yet?
No,
so that's where they're going.
Right? They're working on it. Yeah, because there was the whole presentation, right?
Yeah,
from Mark Zuckerberg that was super
Space Poker or whatever it was.
Yeah,
or just fucking buy Second Life.
They're just going to call it because they're just co-opting the term metaverse, right? They're just going to use that as the name. Yeah,
I'm sure I've asked this before. Is Second Life still about?
Of course. I mean,
it's
not any better than it ever has been. Well, I mean, it got better for a while, a few years back.
I mean, how populated is it now?
It's probably about as populated as it's ever been. A few hundred people or whatever. You're never going to see more than 2 people at once unless it's a very special occasion.
Right. No one makes a corporate car show.
That was funny when they did that. It was pretty for
great,
a while.
Yeah.
And that was another weird situation where it's just why did that happen at that specific time? Because that was before the revival of Second Life. That was back when Second Life was even shitter than it is.
Yeah. Was it before or after apps became a sort of a concept? I guess Second Life was big, on the cusp of apps becoming big as well. So it's because nowadays that's all they'd do, right? They'd ship an app.
I guess, but that doesn't.
But then you can't. How do you draw people into that? It's it doesn't really work.
Yeah. Not that drawing people into Second Life was a good idea, because that's a whole different. You think about how much you have to teach people how to use an app, people how to use fucking Second Life.
Yeah, I guess the dungeon of Sodom that it is. It is what it turned into, isn't it? It's just penis monsters.
Well, I mean, I don't know about penis monsters. Penises might be involved quite a lot.
Spore, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Spore as well.
There might be quite a lot of penises. I'm not necessarily how much penis monsters there are.
Speaking of spacefaring games that I don't think feature that much penis, I've been sort of tempted to get back into No Man's Sky again.
Well, I mean, sure.
Because I've sort of realised I haven't finished that game. And also, I still haven't got...
well, as much as finishing means anything in that game.
I don't know. I guess with No Man's Sky, it's I don't know if I don't know.
You don't know how far you are through it,
or I don't know if I want to go to the center of the galaxy and do the thing, or do I want to swap to another galaxy? What do I Do I actually want to do any of that? I don't know. It's.
Well, I mean, getting through the whole storyline, you must have got.
I'm on the end
game.
End
of it, yeah.
I think I've just got a thing to do,
because it does sort of fade out towards the end where it's just now, because you're going to those Atlas stations or whatever. And it's you have to get through 8 of them, of course, because 8 is the number of that game. But then it's just the story sort of fades out by the 5th one. It's just go to 3 more.
Yeah, I don't know if I've even. Yeah, I definitely haven't done all of that. Go to that many stations.
Yeah.
Because it's the other storyline is basically just saying go to the center now. It's
right, yeah, because it is. Yeah, that storyline eventually is just go to the center, and then the Atlas one is go to this many more Atlas stations and then go to the center.
But I don't know if but there's all this because they've added quite a lot to the game. Even since I was playing it last, really, it's do I want to engage in this stuff? Do I want a pet? Do I want?
Well, yeah, but
do I want to get involved in the mission-y stuff?
The
multiplayer
stuff is the more
because there's new multiplayer stuff, right? The expeditions. And it's
the thing about from what I've seen before I stopped playing it as well, obviously, which was sort of around the same time when Rob stopped playing it, but I'd already been slightly further into the semi-mission-y stuff, because I'd done some of the wrecked freighter stuff, which are sort of missions,
which I sort of want to find, but I've never come across the sort of freight that you the wreckage that you're supposed to be able to find and then make stuff out of. That's something I've never encountered.
Right. Yeah. Well, because I always said before we stopped last time, I said we should do one of those wrecked freighters at some point because we probably could. Because I'd done them by myself enough, and I was just like, yeah, this isn't too difficult, even if Rob isn't necessarily fully equipped or whatever.
I mean, I'd found places like that, and nothing ever happened.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing.
Oh, okay.
The wrecked freighters is a specific mission, basically.
It was just what started this off in my head is I saw like a friend of mine who's been playing it on and off, not as much as I played it in like my one burst of like activity, but they've been playing it on and off since it came out, pretty much. And they've probably got about twice the amount of time in it as I have, maybe. But they were just wielding this badass gun and like flying this ship that looked awesome, and I'm sitting there going like, my pansy little gun that I've never really needed to change, and my pansy little ship, and I've put like must have been 50, 60 hours into that thing.
Well, I mean,
and it's just like I feel like I've got nothing.
But that was what I was trying to get towards when we were last playing, was just like, because I was starting to be like, okay, we need to basically do what I did and like start manipulating the system, where it's just like go to the place where the S-class ships spawn and then hang around and wait for them to spawn, or like look for crashed ships that are in an S-class system or whatever. Because we did find that one good ship, it just wasn't cool.
Yeah. There was one time where I did find something that was relatively cool, but I couldn't recover it at the time, so I went off and did some other stuff, thinking, no, I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Came back to it and it wasn't there.
Yeah, that was
just like, yeah.
But yeah, like, getting the cool gun and the cool ship is not actually really, like... It's
not necessary.
Well, it's not really, like, gameplay exactly.
No, the game has never tested my... The game has never tested my, like, space combat. It's so simple and easy.
Yeah.
Like, I've never really got into a fight that I couldn't win either, really.
No. And once you get, like, even a decent gun that's like got a full set of upgrades on it, you can just like tear stuff up. I definitely got to the point where I was just like, whenever I had one of those combat missions to like kill this many sentinels or whatever, those like the little mini missions that you can track, when it was like kill this many sentinels, I was like, yeah, that's well easy. I can just pretty much just stand here and just shoot them. I don't even have to worry about how much damage they're going to do, because I don't even really take that much damage any longer. And my gun just melts everything in one shot. Even the walkers. It's just like I just use the grenade launcher and they just die.
Maybe I should look through the achievement list or something and be like, let's hunt some achievements.
I don't even remember if there are achievements in that game. Oh, well, there's lots of progress achievements, of course, where it's just like visit how many systems and learn how many words and all that kind of stuff.
I feel like I didn't really travel all that. Or like you didn't travel. I was traveling more towards the end, like because the game is geared up for being a bit more homely now than it was at launch.
It wants you to have a base, and it wants you to progress the upgrades of that base and get all the NPC guys in there and all that stuff.
I don't know. I feel like I'm missing something.
I don't know if you are.
Or maybe I'm not. It's hard to tell. Anyway, I had that temptation. But so far, it's only a temptation, because then I remember there's a million games.
Yep, there sure are.
There's never been a better time to play video games.
Oop. Damn it. Yeah, I need to get rid of that. That happens every time.
Your phone agrees.
It's my iPad that because the phone's on silent. I need to. How do I even?
I've not heard that. Like, is that a new Apple noise?
I don't know. It's a Things. It was from Things, so I don't know if it came from the Things app as a sound or whether it's an Apple sound.
What is Things?
It's a to-do app, but it's just called Things.
Oh, was it the Naggy one you told me about?
No, that one's called Due, which makes sense. I'll just turn the sound down. There we go.
Things.
Yeah, Things 3.
Does it let you put things in holes though?
If you count a checkbox as a hole, you can make checkboxes and then check them to the things
you're putting
checks in the hole.
In holes, yeah.
In holes, yeah. Rounded square holes, Squircle almost looking holes.
Squircle.
Yeah. If you're like a iOS/Apple ecosystem person, then Things is really, really nice. But I don't think it exists on other platforms.
It's just a rounded square where you turn the corner radius up.
Squircle. Well, it's slightly different from just rounding the corners, isn't it, Suckle? Because isn't that what an app icon is?
Yeah, it's
like on
rounded
iOS,
square.
and probably on Android as well. No, it's slightly different from just rounding the corners. It's a slightly different
Bulgy rounded square.
formula. Exactly. It's a bulgy rounded square. Anyway, finally got my MacBook Pro, but I'm with the Apple Silicon chip. Hooray. So I'm just setting it up. I've yet to test the power of it because I have to install all my stuff, but I will let you know. I'm running currently and recording this podcast on the old one until I get the new one set up, but hopefully next time I'll be recording on the new Mac.
Of course, the important question is when are you going to set your PC up so we can get back to doing Deus Ex videos?
I don't know if I'll ever turn this thing on again. Probably when it's under the desk. It's just not plugged in.
And head over to Zach or something to play it. That video series must return at some point. I mean, we've got plenty of Ocarina to get through. You can watch all these videos on the Happy Salad YouTube page or check them out on the feed at happysalad.net.
Because I know that when I moved, I know the graphics card fell out of its socket, so I plugged it back in. But I don't know. I haven't turned it on since then, which was last April. So
you'll be
let's
fine.
see if it actually does. It'll probably be fine. So yeah, that's another thing to do. We'll sort that one out.
You know what you could do with that PC? Run the blockchain.
No way.
You could make some fractions of a pence per day.
You could give EA all your NFT money.
I'll tell you what I have done, which you
could heat your flat.
Yeah,
that's what you could do. Heat your flat.
Instead of getting a PC, I've got another form of computer. I bought a NAS. So
excellent.
Have fun so I'll have fun putting that together when that arrives.
I've got to work out, because I still haven't done it since last week. We tried watching videos off my NAS on the Xbox, which you can technically do, but the inbuilt Xbox media player doesn't have a subtitle reader built in, so we can't watch.
So it's useless
can't watch
for
our old
anime
anime videos that are on that thing.
Well, my plan is to install Plex on the NAS and then
if the NAS is powerful enough to do it, because I can put Plex on my NAS, but it's just it doesn't run well enough.
I bought an extra RAM upgrade for it to hopefully, so it should be able to deal with Plex. That's the plan anyway. If it doesn't, then I can just run Plex server off the Mac, which will work fine. But it'd be nice to not have to have any kind of computer on and basically have a home server that can run Plex.
There is a VLC app for Xbox, so I will. I need to figure out how to get that to see the NAS drive, and because it doesn't seem to have DLNA support. I think I've got to type in some web address it's happy with, which is a bit weird. But if I can figure that out, then maybe VLC can give me subtitles from my NAS.
maybe.
Shall see. These feel like old school media problems, but there's just some media we just can't get hold of. The only reason we're doing this is because Netflix took some stuff off.
It is old school media problems because we're trying to watch old school media, literally.
Absolutely.
Extremely old video files that have built-in subtitles and all that kind of stuff. That is an old school problem at this point. No one uses an actual MP4 file or whatever. They're all watching a stream.
Yeah, I guess. If we got sponsored by Crunchyroll, that'd be great.
I don't think it would.
Or even, what's the other one? Toonami, is it? No, not Toonami.
Sponsored by Newcastle United Football Club.
The Toonami. Toonami. Didn't that used to be a Cartoon Network thing, Toonami?
Yes,
something like that.
I think it did.
Anyway, the other big anime company that has all the other ones. That Sony now own, I think. Anywho.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. I just can't.
Yeah, I can't remember its name. Yeah.
So clearly they fail at advertising because we can easily remember Crunchyroll.
Yeah. Right. If what you've been playing is the section,
Yeah,
I guess we
I guess
kind of
so.
skipped into a bit of No Man's Sky there, but what we plan to play, I guess.
That was what we haven't been playing.
But,
That's why my classic section.
do you want to continue that with what you haven't been playing?
Well, I mean, kind of. Because, like, I basically haven't been playing anything particularly new or interesting this week, except in my enthusiasm to talk about radiation last time in Oni, I completely forgot the game I had played last time. Or the demo of, anyway.
Demo Derby, here we go.
Yeah. Because I played I played it on the Epic Store as well, because for some reason they have their demo on that but not on Steam, even though they have a Steam page. I just haven't got round to releasing it onto Steam or something, maybe. But it's a game called Against the Storm, which is like this. It's a city builder-ish kind of game, although it describes itself as like a roguelite city builder.
Okay. So you're run citying.
Yeah.
And then something destroys it all.
Yeah, kind of. So, like, the idea is that it's like the classic destroyed world situation where you've got the one remaining city and then you have to expand into the wilderness or whatever. So you're building all these little settlements. And so there's like, you build a certain number of settlements and then the thing comes and destroys them all and then it starts over again. You start the cycle.
The thing.
I think it's just a big storm. Well, I mean, that's why it's called Against the Storm, I guess. It's just basically the setting of this world is it just rains all the time, and then sometimes there's worse rain, I guess, that destroys everything.
Heavy rain.
Yeah, basically.
An origami killer turns up.
Yeah, maybe. But
And you really panic about Jason.
yeah, you just say Jason a lot. Hit X to Jason. But yeah, you build these little towns, and then the sort of roguelite element of it is that, I mean, not just you build a certain number of towns and then the thing comes and destroys them all and you start over, but also within each map, it's essentially you're doing each map is sort of a run of the city building aspect where you start from nothing, but then there's sort of randomized elements to it, where it's just like, on this map you have these certain bonuses and these certain negative effects, and then as you expand, basically it sort of basically puts more of a time pressure on a city building gameplay, where like you basically have two bars at the bottom. You have like your victory bar where you have to do a certain number of things to win, and then you have like the failure bar where it's like if you spend too long you just fail, essentially.
Okay.
It's like the Queen's impatience, I think is what it's called. So it's just like if you're dicking around and taking too long, then eventually you just run out, the Queen gets too impatient and you just fail.
Philip,
Yeah.
is the city built yet?
Pretty much.
Do my corgis have somewhere to run?
But then, so that is why it's sort of time-based. And then there's also the sort of seasons of the rain cycle, which is also on a timer, obviously. So you have 3 seasons where it's just like, you have rain, you have less rain, and then you have more rain. Because it's always raining. But like, so you have the spring is just like regular amounts of rain, summer is the less rain segment, and then winter is like the actual storm where things get worse.
If it gets really bad, is it terminal more rain?
Probably.
Uh,
But then, so you're building this city, and then it has like 3 races where you have like humans, beavers, and lizards. Which, being a lizard
do
in
well
this
in
world
a
must
storm.
suck real bad. Beavers, totally fine.
yeah. They can build dams.
Rise up.
Yeah. They're not troubled by storms.
Hey, daggy.
But then being a
daggy,
lizard
daggy, daggy.
is just like, that's got to be the worst. But then that is sort of reflected in like each of the 3 races has like you can raise their happiness essentially by doing certain things, and obviously lizards are the hardest to please because they start at shit all happiness because of their horrible existence in this world, I guess.
Wait, so these are now intelligent factions, are they? These creatures.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like 3 different races of your population, and you can sort of choose which ones you want to. You sort of like every season you get a migration wave where you choose between 2 choices of like how many people and what different races you take, and then you can favor them more or less, where it's just like each race has certain different products they like to consume, and then they each have a specific type of house that you can theoretically unlock if you get given that choice. And that's part of the roguelite as well, where it's just like at the start of every season you get this randomized migrant wave and you get a random blueprint essentially from one of the buildings. So sometimes you'll just get the choice of the 3 different racial houses and you can choose one of them, but sometimes you won't even get that and it will just be like one of the race's houses and 2 other random blueprints.
Right.
Where it's just like, oh, do I want a production building or do I want to make this one specific race more happy by building specific houses from them? And then the progress of the map is basically you're in a forest clearing, because at least in this first environment, the whole place is just one big forest. And then you have to sort of tunnel out through the trees into other clearings. And then when you open these clearings, that's like a little event, essentially. The small ones generally just have a couple of resource patches. And then the bigger ones have some kind of actual random event where it's just like, you need to supply this weird totem with a certain amount of resources or it will just start killing people. So that adds another layer of the like timed aspect to it. And then there can also be like actual bonuses that are triggered during different seasons. Like one of them that I saw quite frequently was like, if you open a new clearing during the spring season, you just get bonus food. So it's like you want to time your woodcutting progress so that you only open these new clearings in spring. Or like the opposite, where if you open a clearing in the winter storm, it really fucks up your people's morale because they think it's bad. So yeah, that is the kind. So it is. You do sort of build the same city from nothing in like the same style of, the same. It's not, you don't get the exact same build order because obviously the blueprints you get are random, but like it's the same progression through building a city towards the opening up the clearings and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But it's slightly randomized every time. And obviously maybe that's more random in the non-demo version where there's more events and more different buildings or whatnot. And it also seems like the meta progress of like once all your settlements get destroyed and you go back to the main city, you can unlock specific blueprints in the main city that will then appear in the blueprint pool. So like that's standard road like meta progression style. But yeah, it's a fairly nice little game, it seems, but it's hard to say how much that, how long you could continue playing that same loop of building a city from nothing over and over before that would get kind of dragging.
I mean, it's you, so I'm expecting quite a while.
Yeah.
But for regular people like me, probably 1 or 2 runs.
Yes, because it is, even with the sort of time pressure element of it, it's still not like fast exactly.
Also,
it's not like a turbo city builder.
I need to apologise for calling myself a regular person. That's not at all accurate, but let's carry on.
No.
In this case, in this context. Yeah.
I refuse to libel myself.
But yeah, that's that game that I completely forgot to talk about last time.
Does sound vaguely interesting, though. At least someone's trying something different.
Yeah, I mean, and it's quite nice looking and like, functional for an indie game, I guess, in an early access demo state, because it is in early access also. It's not just a demo of a full product. It is still in early access, and this is a demo of it.
Right.
So you're definitely not getting the full experience.
I assume the demo doesn't cuts off how many of the loops you can do or how many things you can add to your pool.
I mean, it will let you play the loop as much as you want, so you can continue to just build more cities. It's just there's never any new events or new. Right. You can unlock some of the start of the tech tree, but it's like you don't get the currency for that very much, and you'd have to grind the loop so many times. It's just like it's discouraging you from doing it.
Weird. So, do you reckon you could complete the demo? Because it sounds like there isn't a hard stop.
Well, I don't know exactly how much it. I guess you don't. There's like a currency to unlock the tech tree, and there's also you have to get a certain amount of experience points, which you get from building towns. And I don't know if that's like decreases if you repeat it over and over.
Yeah, maybe it just stops.
And there is only like one environment in the demo. You only get the forest environment,
right? So
you can't get certain other specific things that are in the other environments.
Fair enough. That makes sense. It's nice to know. Well, it seems like you can get quite a lot out of the demo, and
you can definitely get a feel for like the way it has these different options and how different runs will be different. Because it's mainly with like the different blueprints you get offered, where it's just like in a couple of the cities I was building, I was like, oh, well, you can make cloth real easy, and then you can make clothes, and that just makes everyone happy because of clothes. But then in a couple of cases where it's just
clothes.
like I didn't get the clothing shop blueprint, so I was just like, well, I'm not going to have that. But then what can I do with all this cloth? Well, I guess now I can start selling the cloth to the traders instead and get different resources that way. So it does slightly mixed up. And also you can occasionally just like when you open a large clearing, there'll just be an abandoned building there, and that will be like a building that you don't necessarily have the blueprint for, or even in the tech tree level you might not even have that blueprint. Not just you don't have it on that run, you might not actually even have that blueprint unlocked.
Sure.
So that gave me a couple of opportunities to be like, oh, this is something actually different.
Do you think that vaguely solve like tackling the problem then, the problem of problems that you have, right? Where the like
where everything is different every time. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what roguelites are for, right?
they're trying to, yeah. They're
You've
trying
got to build a run.
they're trying to solve the problem of it being this is how you solve it, right? Because there's a lot of variables at play.
Yeah. And also, another thing that I kind of forgot to say about how this game works, which also confused me for a while. But when you're looking at the like recipes to make something in the production windows of all these buildings, a lot of them actually have like you can choose different resources to use. So it represents it as like if the resource is in a square, that's fixed. But if it's in a circle, you can click it and it will show you a radial menu of
interesting.
all the different resources that could go in that slot.
That's kind of interesting, yeah. You've got choices.
So you can like obviously in some cases it's like which one of these do I actually have access to?
Yeah.
But in some cases it can be like, well, which one of these aren't I using as much that I can shift my balance around to prioritize one or the other?
And do they impart slightly different properties?
Not usually.
It's just get it done. Like whether it's wood or steel, it doesn't matter. We still build a thing.
Yeah. And there is another layer to that kind of where different buildings produce the same product but better. Like if you use the crude workshop, which is like the first production building you get to make planks, it sucks. It just like uses a ton of wood and makes crappy planks out of it. But then once you get an actual like lumber mill, that's like almost 1-to-1 for logs to planks.
Okay.
So it makes it way more efficient. So that can influence which blueprint you want to unlock when you get given the option. Which is like, if I'm going down a route where I'm going to need planks, I better look out for that lumber mill blueprint if I get the option. But if I don't, then I'll have to much more prioritize wood cutting instead.
I see. Yeah, all right. It sounds like there's more to this than I would normally pay attention to in Zach's factory descriptions.
Yep, as always.
Fair. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, there was that. That was the game that I forgot to talk about. Even though that 2 weeks I played it quite a lot, I completely forgot about it when I started talking about Oni, and then remembered about it now. So I did actually manage to get round to talk about it.
So Against the Storm.
Yep. And then the other thing that I've just started playing for absolutely no real reason apart from my typical reason of people were talking about a thing and then I started thinking about it was I started playing Pokemon Pearl, the original, not the remake.
Oh, not the remake. Wow.
Because I was like, people are talking about the remake about it, and I was like, fuck man, I'll just go and play the original and it'll be better because it is.
Yeah, so the sentiment seems to be.
But also, the other thing is, like, normally, because I'm that kind of person, I don't like deleting save files out of Pokemon games.
Sure.
Because you only get one.
Yeah, unless you buy another copy.
Yeah, unless you buy a second copy. But the thing is that in the case of my copies of Pearl and Black, in fact, so maybe I'll even get to play that at some point, is that because back in X and Y, they'd finally properly integrated the stupid Pokemon transfer system, I'd already moved all the Pokemon out of Diamond and Pearl and Black and White up to my X and Y save. So those saves are almost completely empty now.
Yeah,
so I was like, well, I can just delete this. It'll be totally fine.
I'm not really losing anything. Neat.
So I went in there and I deleted it and started a fresh save of Pearl. And I was just like, oh yeah, this game is actually kind of good for a Pokemon game. It's like once you go, as soon as I started remembering like the stuff that's in this game, I was like, oh yeah, Pearl is like almost the peak of content in Pokemon, where it's just like it had a bunch of like little side systems and mini games and stuff that then in subsequent games started getting removed over time.
It's just the ones we had to keep your Pokemon happy, or like train them with mini games, or like...
kind of, because so Diamond and Pearl had the like contests, which are like the alternate system where your battle moves have this alternate statistic for like how appealing they are in the contest setting. And then you can like you get accessories to like do the fashion show element of the contest, and then there's like a sort of a miniature rhythm game as well for like the dance segment of the contest.
Okay,
and then
so it's a beauty pageant for Pokemon.
Yeah, pretty much. And then to go with that, you then have the thing where you like, they called poffins, but you like mix up a berry into this batter and it makes a thing that you feed your Pokemon, which raises its contest stats specifically. And that has its own little mini game of like stirring the pot, and like you have to stir it slowly at the start because it's like more liquid, or it'll spill out if you stir it too quickly. And then as it starts cooking, it gets more dense. You have to more vigorously stir it, but you have to stir it in the right direction that it's telling you to stir it in.
Pokemama?
Yeah, pretty much. And then there's the whole underground, which was really meant for a sort of a Wi-Fi. It was, you're meant to do local Wi-Fi in the age of local Wi-Fi.
I see, yeah.
And you're all meant to go in the underground and run around down there and like build a secret base in the wall and like mine these. And it has a little like mining mini game where you're like trying to unearth the things that are embedded in the wall, but you only have a certain amount of hits before the wall collapses and that kind of stuff.
Oh my god, there was something about like the way you were just doing, like, I guess that was a stylus.
Yep,
action,
it was
right?
on the touchscreen.
But that vaguely I don't know. Do you remember what is it? The cube? Like, what was that stupid Peter Molyneux thing?
The cube.
Was it just called Cube? Or
yes.
Yeah,
Tafaware.
yeah.
Stupid
Peter
Molyneux thing.
Reminded me of that.
But yeah, so there's
You guys were tapping on that cube though.
a little bit.
I tapped them cubes. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing that when I started playing it again, I was like, oh yeah, this was maybe the peak of that, where it's like it had all these subsystems and secondary minigame things built into the game, and then they started going away after this. I don't really remember how much of this survived into Black, because I think some of it did. I'm not sure if Contest did. I think Pearl might have been the last. Diamond and Pearl might have been the last one that had the contests.
Some of a training related system.
Well, X and Y had the super training, which was how you could basically specifically train different stats instead of having to grind wild Pokemon.
I remember that.
And that was obviously great for if you wanted to build Pokemon in a specific way for like more professional style battles.
Right.
I don't remember what the new thing in Black was, really. But then the other, I guess, new thing for Pearl was like, because it had the touchscreen, you had the stupid PokeWatch thing where it's like you had little apps on your bottom screen where you could like, it had a calculator app and like a map and, a pedometer and all these kind of like, it had like basically had a smartwatch except in Pokemon way before smartwatches were a thing.
I heard that was kind of one of the things that like hasn't been changed for the better in the new one, because they've had to turn it into like a weird picture-in-picture sort of thing or some other pop-out style, because obviously there isn't a second screen now to just host all that, and that hasn't quite translated as well as perhaps it should have.
I mean, the trouble is that like, well, there's a couple of problems with it in the old version, which is firstly, you basically can only have one app at a time, of course, because there's just one. Your bottom screen has the screen which has the app on it, and one giant button that just cycles through the apps.
Okay,
which is kind of awkward, especially because you can't skip to one that you want. So when you have a ton of apps, you're like, I just have to loop through the whole set to find the one that I don't actually need.
Is it at least a quick transition, or is
not
it
really?
It's a Nintendo.
It's a bit of a
transition.
whoop.
Oh, okay, that's kind of annoying.
But
Send the police.
Yeah, but then the other problem with those apps is that like once you get, there's one in particular which is the worst possible thing, where you get the radar app where you can tap on the bottom screen to send out a radar pulse. It shows you hidden items near you. So, of course, you're just going to be walking around the entire game, stopping every 10 steps to hit the bottom button to send out a radar pulse to see if there's any hidden items around. Yeah. And it's like, this kind of sucks.
In fairness, I did a lot of that in Halo Infinite. You just walk around.
Sending out ping.
Yeah, send out a ping. It's like, is there anything yellow near me?
I mean, it is the classic, like, Batman Arkham Asylum detective vision problem, where it's just like you end up playing the whole game like that, because that's just how you see where things are.
Yeah.
Slightly less important in Pokemon, because, I mean, hidden items in Pokemon are not that vital, I suppose.
Potion.
Yeah, Poketions and Pokeballs. Occasionally a nugget that you might be able to sell for a couple of £1,000 or something. And also in this, so when I started this playthrough, I was just like, I'm just going to be real lazy and just sort of min-max it and basically just only use my starter Pokemon for fighting. So now my starter Pokemon is like super over-leveled and could just one-shot everything. And I'm just like, well, yeah, I guess this is just how Pokemon works.
Yeah, I mean, that means you're doing it right.
I guess. As soon as, I mean, like, you might come up against the, bad type matchup and then you'll be in trouble, but I haven't yet. The main reason I was doing that is because I remembered that you get the experience share fairly early in Pearl. I didn't remember when exactly or where. And I was like, well, I can just use my starter Pokemon until I get the experience share. And then if I want to level anyone else up, I can just use the experience share, have my starter Pokemon one hit everything, and then just get half the experience onto someone else. So that was what I aimed to do. I'd also kind of forgotten that you can actually get multiple experience shares in that game, and I think in my original save I did, because there's a lottery system where it uses the trainer ID numbers, which are like you have your trainer ID, and then anyone you trade with, they have a unique ID as well.
Okay, yeah.
And that can include NPCs in the game, so you can get some other trainer numbers even without going online, because obviously the online system probably doesn't work any longer.
No.
But yeah, you can, from one of the prizes from that lottery, you can just get another experience share. So you can equip experience share to multiple Pokemon. And that was, I think, the first time they'd done that. Whereas nowadays, experience share isn't even an item. Like you just turn it on.
You just have it, don't you? Like, isn't on the most recent one, it's not even like a half experience thing. It's just like it's shared amongst all Pokemon evenly in your party at all times.
Yeah, that's the modern version of experience share since, I think, Sword and Shield definitely had it. I think the one before that, Ultra Sun and Moon, might have had it as well. Where it was just everyone in the party gets experience. I think one of the main problem that I saw people complaining about in the remake of Diamond and Pearl is they have that system, but you can't even turn it off. Oh, it's just always experience share.
Yeah, surely that's if you're like pro grading your Pokemon. Well, that's are there times where you don't want to do that?
I mean, that's the thing that I've always been slightly confused about experience share in the modern version of this, like everyone gets experience, is whether it also everyone gets the EVs, like the values that actually affect your stats.
Yeah.
Because I think in the old version of experience share, where it was only a one Pokemon, you equip it to that Pokemon and it halves the experience. I think the EVs do get transferred through that. But in the modern one, I mean, that would just fuck up all kinds of stats if everyone on your team was getting the same EV values.
Right.
Because what if you don't want this guy to have speed stats because you want him to have defense stats or whatever?
And then you have to use him in fights more, and then you'll get the defense stats, right? Or like,
yeah, but
I can't really remember how any of that works.
But then everyone in your team would get those stats. That's the trouble. You'd have to basically empty your team or like fill it with other Pokemon that you're not worried about the stats of or whatever while you're grinding for the specific stats. And that's the other weird.
I didn't realize that those stats were shared as well. Like I figured that they would all grow individually in some way. Or...
Well, I mean, the way the EVs work in the leveling is like, so every Pokemon has like a set growth progression on their stats, which is based on the species. But then if you fight specific types of Pokemon, they get EV values from that Pokemon. So like Rapidashers give you speed. So if you just grind killing Rapidashers, it gives you a bunch of speed EVs, and then that makes your speed increase faster compared to the base value of that Pokemon.
Okay.
So you have like the base level that they would be at, like level 50, they'd be at 100 speed or whatever. But if you've been grinding a bunch of Rapidashers, it would be at like 120 or something.
I see. Gotcha.
So if that's shared between the whole team, that would really fuck everything up.
Yeah.
And then that's the weird thing about why in X and Y, when they introduced the super training, where you could just specifically grind EVs without having to do fights, and it was per Pokemon and all that stuff, that made that way easier. And then they kind of just got rid of that system for the subsequent games, which was a shame because I really like that system for making specific stats.
I mean, are they trying to casualize the combat more than pro stat
that
isn't the thing, but then isn't it like weird systems about the breeding and shinies and
they have kind of simplified those as well.
IVs and...
I mean, I guess because shinies have become much more like a much simpler and much more explicitly obvious system, which you grind encounters with one specific Pokemon and it increases the probability of the shiny and the same for eggs. When you're breeding one specific egg, you get an increasing probability of shinies or whatever
over time.
But it was weird because X and Y was basically sort of the peak of technical Pokemon, I guess, with those super trainings where you could specifically target specific effort values using the super training and you could see them. You could just look at the values directly, so you didn't have to guess or estimate it or figure it out by knowing the Pokemon's base stats. And then
right, because I remembered you talking about hidden numbers at some points around this stuff.
And that's more on the breeding side because they're IVs, the starting stats basically,
or the ones you can't see.
The ones you can't see, except you kind of can, I think, in X and Y, and I think in maybe the game afterwards they fully showed those. But yeah, X and Y was the peak of that, and now they've just started taking it all away again, which is they don't want you to know all these hidden numbers that are the actual stats, which is quite weird.
I guess it's to try and keep fights interesting rather than you going into them going oh no, his stats are better than mine, well, I'm boned.
Yeah, but I feel like Pokemon always kind of automatically segregated that anyway. If you weren't doing that, you were just automatically so much better than generic child Pokemon, I guess. For children who had been playing it and were always going to get destroyed by people who actually knew how the systems worked in the background.
Probably how I would play it in fairness.
Well, yeah. But then, once they started allowing you to see those values, you could argue that actually allowed for more people to get into that system because it wasn't an annoying hidden math problem that you had to look up on a website to even know what was going on.
You could see the numbers go up.
But yeah, who knows what's going to happen with the Pokemon series. But yes, going back to these old ones, I was oh yeah, this is when Pokemon was good.
Yeah.
Back when it was good.
Back when it was 2D pixel art.
Back to the old school, back to your roots.
And I think Diamond and Pearl was probably the first one where there was 3D elements. It hadn't gone, because I think...
So what is the pinnacle then?
Well, I would say...
want those 3D elements?
I mean, I think generally people would say that Black and White 2 were the pinnacle. I didn't play Black and White 2, I only played Black and White 1.
So that's before X and Y.
Before X and Y, yeah.
And then before Sun and Moon.
Before Sun and Moon.
Yeah, okay, got it.
So I think generally people would consider Black and White to be the best ones. But yeah, when I'm going back to Pearl, I was oh yeah, it's still pixel art, but there are occasional little bits of 3D elements. Sometimes actual 3D and sometimes more Mode 7-ish stuff going on. Yeah. But then once you get to Black and White, I seem to remember that started moving into a lot of 3D, actual 3D environments rather than... I suppose Diamond and Pearl, are they 3D environments? Yeah, I guess they must be. Some of the buildings in towns and whatnot are actual 3D models. But Black and White definitely did it more. And Black and White was also once they started getting into camera angles, where it's the camera could actually move down.
Was that the one where there was the whole thing about that's the shadow of missing no in this doorway?
Maybe. I don't remember. But yeah, Black and White, they definitely started getting into swooping the camera around and weird... You're walking over this really long bridge and then the camera will pan behind you or this is this pointless spiral route.
Because we can do that now.
Yeah, because we can do that with the power of some amount of 3D on the handheld systems. And then obviously X and Y full 3D. And X and Y was still good, I thought. But then it went downhill from there when they started just making the same game over and over and making it weirdly or removing all these features. Because that was the other thing I was trying to remember about Diamond and Pearl was there a special battle feature in this one, because I don't think there was, because obviously Mega Revolutions were X and Y, and I think that was the first new system since like Shinies, and that was the first time they tried to put in like the extra powers on top of regular Pokemon evolution and whatnot.
Oh, was this what you mean, the R moves or something like that? We're like,
it was Mega Revolutions in X and Y, then in Sun and Moon you had Z moves.
Z moves, that was it, yeah.
And then obviously in Sword and Shield you've got
Gigantamax.
Yep. Dynamax and Gigantamax. But then every time they've added one of those, they basically removed the previous one.
Yeah.
Which is like why everyone was always pissed about that.
Because it means Pokemon moving becomes weird because they lose stuff in the transfer.
Well, it's not exactly that they lose stuff. It's more just like unnecessarily. I mean, I don't know. It's just like those Uber moves always seemed weird for like the competitive people because it was like it was one of those things where like you just had to use them because it was the Uber move that did the massive damage or whatever. But then like once you're taking these systems out, it's just like why is Z moves a different thing from Mega Evolution, really? It's basically the same concept. You trigger a thing and it does an Uber move, except in Mega Evolution it's like a toggle state almost.
Yeah, similar to what Dynamax and Gigantamax ended up being.
Exactly. You might as well have just made those Mega Evolutions and just come up with a dumb lore explanation for why they also get big.
Get big, yo.
But yes, I played some amount of Diamond and Pearl.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I feel like they do have to change the game each time. Like they can't just. I don't know. It feels like a series that perhaps got itself too like they built on it for a while, and then we're like, if we add any more, maybe this is going to get out of hand. So they started changing things, which is fine. But maybe what they've changed hasn't been as good as that, as you say, that pinnacle.
Well, I think they've gone too far is the main problem. They've just removed so much that there really isn't any of this side stuff any longer even.
They're adding too many pokers instead of techers.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, it's just like... Yeah, the modern games, from what I know of them, obviously I haven't played any since X and Y, but it's like they feel like they're quite barren of the side stuff. Like Sword and Shield had the curry decks, I guess.
Oh yeah,
which was their cooking mini game. Although I don't think it even was. Well, no, I guess
did they have someone go? Mm-hmm.
Probably. It does have a what I would call a mini game, but I don't think it actually matters. Like it's more like just a generic QuickTime event thing that you have to do,
right, yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily have any effect.
I guess it's a little bit like the in Ring Fit when you're making you can make smoothies out of the items you find in the levels, and it makes you squeeze the ring controller to make the smoothie, and it's like you don't need to do that. Like, it's
right.
It's like you're going to make me do this because Ring Fit, but,
well, sure.
but in the same breath, it's like there's no change in the outcome depending on how I squeeze it, which might have been funky. What if I want a slightly pulpier mix? Like,
yes. What if you actually could change it?
Change my squeeze.
And also, obviously, Pokemon were just better in the old days because they hadn't run so much out of ideas.
Where did the trash pile get introduced? I mean, that's still one of the best. Like, I'm not knocking it, but it's a hilarious like sign that they might have been running out of ideas.
I think that was X and Y, or was that the one before? I don't remember. It might be Black and White actually.
Or the chandelier. When was the chandelier?
That was probably Black and White as well.
Right.
I mean, that was slightly more acceptable.
I mean, it made it into Pokken.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't make a second Pokken.
Or just continue to expand the one they had.
I thought Pokken did all right. Like, there were Japanese arcade machines of Pokken where you held I saw them when I was there, but they didn't have like a standard fight stick. They just attached a gamepad to the arcade, which was weird.
And probably broke a lot.
Oh, I bet. Pokken was a cool idea. I can get into like if they had made one that had more than what the 8 odd fighters that were in it.
Yeah, and then the DLC, which was asking a lot.
Yeah. They could have been onto something. modern day Namco would probably do a better job, like Tekken 7 and Soul Calibur era, where you got quite a few characters in the box.
I suppose the other reason that people think, because I misremembered that this was Diamond and Pearl, but it's actually Black and White. The other reason that those ones are probably the best was because Black and White was the one where they specifically made it so that during your progression through the story, you would only see new Pokemon. And then once you'd got into the post game, that was when you could get all of them.
Yeah.
That was probably the best move before they started taking Pokemon out, of course, which was what they started doing after that.
It got unmanageable. They were going to reach the point at somewhere along the line.
But then they didn't continue to do that even when they started taking Pokemon out, which is what they should have done. And regional variants don't count. Just because your Weezing has a giant smokestack top hat, that doesn't make it new. It's still fucking Weezing.
As badass as that is.
Weezing!
It's hard to beat the original 150, but some of the gold and silvers I will lean towards as well.
Yes.
Past that point, I'm kind of into
past that point, you don't even know.
Past that point, I'm not really familiar. And also, the ones I do see don't seem quite so appealing.
I mean, Gold and Silver has Pseudo-Weedo, which is the pinnacle of Pokemon
but you
design.
don't get Bonsly until like a couple of days later.
That's right. You need
Bonsly's
Bonsly.
pretty rad.
Okay, Pokemon then.
Yep.
Or Wobbuffet.
Wobbuffet is...
He's probably a rubbish Pokemon in
He
the
really
game.
is rubbish.
But I just
He's
like
a
the way
counter Pokemon.
I just like the way he goes Wobbuffet in Smash Bros.
That's where Rob mostly likes Pokemon from.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where all of my Pokemon knowledge comes from. Who's the dubstep Pokemon that's in Detective Pikachu?
What, Loudred?
Loudred.
Yeah.
When were they?
I don't remember. That might be X and Y.
Excuse me, Mr. Pokemon.
it might be
when
Black and
were you?
Yes, the stupid speaker Pokemon.
I mean, that was one of the cooler ideas in the film.
Except it wasn't a film idea. It was that's just a Pokemon that exists.
Yeah, but having them combined and just doing dubstep, and then when they got like high on R, and it's like even fatter bass. It's just like
Yes, that I guess we didn't mention that when we were talking about the film, but I did find it kind of weird. It was just like it's mostly original Pokemon, and then like some of the like not even the X and Y generation. It was like the Black and White generation, where it's just like it was originally, except for these occasional non-original ones. It's just like, why not just use just original ones? I mean, obviously you wouldn't have a dubstep Pokemon if you were only on the original, so I guess they kind of wanted to slip that in for the comedy routine.
Then they got Greninja.
Yeah, slightly unnecessarily. Like, what did they really contribute to that story apart from
Shurikens?
Yeah, it's just like that could have been any
That
Pokemon
were
attack.
wrong.
They weren't even especially ninja-y about it.
No.
I mean, they were sort of leaping out of the sky, throwing Shurikens.
Sure, but any Pokemon can do that practically. It's just how Pokemon... You could have had a flying Pokemon and that would have the same function. And also you could have had some attack that actually made sense for them to be able to find later than a water shuriken, which should have just immediately dissolved.
True.
That really was dumb.
Yeah.
And it's not like you need to hardcore promote Greninja like you did with Smash Bros. Or whatever at the time. It's not relevant any longer. You have to be all like, this is the brand new Pokemon. This is not Ash Greninja. That's the other... That was the other thing they did with Greninja
It's
at
not
the
even
time.
the fire wrestler whose name I've forgotten.
Incineroar.
Yeah.
That one was weird for Smash Bros. Though, because there wasn't really any... That was the,
There wasn't really a
previous
wrestler
game,
in-
essentially.
Yeah, and there wasn't really a wrestler in Smash Bros. Though, so I can see why they picked it. Like,
I mean, they could have done something, any of the other fighting type Pokemon. Probably not as cool.
but he went raw and posed. It was like, was it Skullgirls where the first dude they added to the game was a wrestler just so they could have him hit people with chairs?
Yep. And he just had a chair constantly, doesn't he? I think I've seen
It's a little bit like Cody's knife, like his chair mechanic, and like the chair is always there, but you lose it and you have to go get it, and it's.
So yeah, that was pretty much it. I was trying to remember anything else that I'd actually played, but I don't think I played anything else really. Not even much of the usuals. Been a downtime week, I guess.
Oh man, nothing wrong with Pokemon.
Except for how much time you can spend in it, I guess.
Yeah,
I did look at the save file before I deleted it. I was like, 300 hours, okay.
Okay.
Although that was always a question of how much did I grind it at, like post game grind it at the time.
Yeah. If you're just, what's your plan here? You reckon you're just going to do the story and check out a little bit post game, or?
Yeah, maybe. I don't really remember what the post game is like in Pearl. That's the thing. But I might also.
And then you're going to push them through the series.
Well, I'm not sure you'll be able to transfer them any longer. Well,
is there a point where Pokemon Home or whatever it is just stops working? Or?
Well, yeah, that's the question, because I don't know what the situation is with that old Pokemon Home app. Like, maybe if I just, because I'm playing it on my 3DS using the DS cart, but
Sure.
like if I take that back and get out my actual DS where the Home app is probably still installed, I might actually be able to still use that.
Yeah, I wonder if those servers are still active. I bet they're not.
Well, because the original Home app, I don't think communicates with a server, or it can, but I don't think it has to. Because when you transfer them up from Diamond and Pearl to Black and White, and then from Black and White to X and Y, it like you sort of send them into the Home app. But then it doesn't necessarily go to a server, because then you put the other game in, and then it looks to that, and then
Home, and
then you do whatever dumb mini game thing you have to do to transfer the Pokemon up to the next game. But
right, yeah.
I think it is a fairly direct process. But I don't need to do that again because I've got all my originals,
I've got them all.
including the weirdly hacked ones that I had.
Or what, the ones you got from online?
Yeah. That at the time, because you couldn't see the stats, I didn't know were hacked. But now you can look at the stats in X and Y and be like, oh, yeah, that's totally hacked.
All Fs.
I should probably actually find my X and Y cartridge again and look at that as well. Because I know I opened up my little cartridge holder thing for my DS games. I was like, oh, what's it? I guess I also played some Meteos.
Sweet.
Speaking of games I did play.
Yeah.
Because Meteos is awesome.
Good point, actually, because I couldn't play Meteos for a bit on my old DS because the
screen was
touchscreen
fucked.
started going messed up.
Yep.
Yeah. I haven't, since I've had my 3DS, I haven't really tried it again. Maybe I should.
But surely you completed Meteos.
I mean, probably. I can't remember. But I don't think I did everything that game had to offer, but
I did.
I know you did. Of course you did.
And that's actually kind of... It is slightly difficult to go back to Meteos. Like, I'm definitely not as good at it as I used to be. I can't defeat the full 5-star difficulty, 5-star AI.
Right, okay.
Although the way I've always played Meteos was slightly weird. Because I always played it one-on-one with you and the AI being the same planet. But a lot of the time in that game, it's different planets and there's multiple targets, which makes it actually quite a lot different. Because when there's multiple targets and they're different planets, they can send different colours to you. Whereas if you're playing two of the same planet, you only get the colours that already exist on your planet, which makes it much easier to combo.
Absolutely. But that's the puzzle fighter problem, right? Like, you really send your pattern.
Except in reality, the trick with Meteos was always just like initiate your one big combo and then maintain it for as long as possible. You just have to keep jiggling it up and down very slightly, as much as the planet's-specific gravity
Try
will
not
allow.
to complete it until you get those one planets where it's like if a few boosts go nowhere and then the next boost will just go pew! And you're like, oh well, that combo's over.
All the boosts just do nothing except for one, or like only the vertical boost do anything.
Yeah, I remember that.
You can create a line of combo across the map that just doesn't actually lift off, and then as soon as you do a vertical combo, the whole thing just disappears.
It goes.
That was cool. It was a cool game.
Yeah.
and cool music.
I don't know if
Or music-esque things.
Good enough for what the DS could cope with anyway. I do remember playing quite a lot of that with a headphone jack in my DS, like rigged up to my amp.
It is funny to go to the sound test and just listen to some of the actual sound effects. Like, obviously the little music loops, and then each one has like 3 different levels of stress.
Right, yeah.
when your screen gets more full, you get the more stress version. And then like each of the different combo launch sound effects, there's like 5 different tiers of combo launch. And then those just get pitch shifted up for like the next 5 tiers. And then there's also, the weird thing about it is like, there are a couple of sound effects in there in the sound test, because the sound test is laid out, it's got like per planet, and then each one has the same set of samples. So like each number is equivalent for each of the planets.
Sure,
so like slot 1 is the bass music, slot 2 is the stress music or whatever. But there are a couple of sound effects in there that you literally can't hear in the game, because there's certain planets where you can never cause this certain combo to happen.
I see.
But there's still a sound effect in the sound test.
The sound guy still had to fill the slot, so they put something in there without realizing the mechanics were.
Well, it's not necessarily without realizing the mechanics, because
the mechanics changed at some point, maybe.
Well, no, because one of the specific ones, I don't remember which planet it is, but there's a specific planet where you can't do this specific combo, but the sound effect in it basically just has a crowd that's like chanting, and they're just being like, no, 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 and it's just like, because this sound effect literally can't happen, but they're like, that sound effect is specifically made for this purpose. It's it's like the sound developer Easter eggs.
Right, yeah. It's kind of cool. There was a follow-up to Meteors, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was like the weird Disney one.
Oh, yeah.
But obviously it was simplified.
Yeah.
Obviously, because of Disney. They made it a Disney time, so they had to simplify it.
Huh. I mean, I guess it was Q, and Q never really returned to much in that era.
No,
so it was...
except for maybe Every Extend.
Well, Every Extend Extra and whatever the 360 version of it, they were quite different things.
Yeah, I guess.
I suppose there were 3 variants of that, because Every Extend was a web game first, and then Extra was the PSP one, and then it's probably the better one.
Yeah.
And then the 360 one that was a bit ropey, but what ended up playing a Smeg Tunnel.
But yes, that was my return to my DS games, I guess. I did look in there and it's like, oh, look at these Advance Wars cartridges.
Oh, Extreme. That was it. They added an Extreme on the end.
Yes, you got to have E4.
Yeah.
You got to have more E's. It's basically the same as, well, I guess it's not the same as like Bitrip Runner, because their ones were different. Super hyper, I don't remember, something extra.
I think it's time for what Rob's been playing.
Yeah, I guess so.
Not a huge amount to talk about this time. I went back to Halo Infinite, having finished the campaign, and just messed around on the map for a bit more. Like, I got all the Spartan cores, I got all of the armor unlocks.
But how many skulls did you get?
9 of 12,
No,
I
well,
think.
not bad, I guess.
Yeah, but for without using a guide for any of them, like I think I did pretty well. They're definitely easier by that. There's no like weird like logic. I mean, one of them, the Grunt birthday party one, there were a couple of hoops to go through, but it wasn't super complex.
Right.
It's not as complex as some of the ones from the previous Halo games have been, where they're really obscure, or you've got to perform a very awkward grenade jump to get somewhere, or things like that. Like it's and also like the skulls in this game have an audio effect, so if you're pretty close to one, you can hear it.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes they've designed bits of the levels so like, oh, you're not going to hear this one from outside because it's too far away, like down a corridor. So they try and design around that at times. But there are times, there are definitely places where you can just be like, ooh, that's the skull noise. There's something's around here. Scan it. What's around? Where's the tiny sphere on my scanner? I think my original, like what I've talked about it before, still stands. It still feels a bit one note, and some of the open worldiness occasionally falls apart. Like, I don't know. I think when I was showing you guys before that there might have been a section where Banshees just sort of disappeared out of the sky.
Yeah.
I've had that be way more egregious in this last set. Well, I'd be flying around in a wasp because I've unlocked that now, and I would be flying over the landscape trying to get somewhere. I'm just looking for propaganda towers to destroy and things like that. And a couple of Banshees would come out of the sky and start shooting at me. I'd be like, great, let's get into a dogfight. And I'd be fighting them. I'd get one down, the guy I'd be falling to his doom, I'd be fighting the other one, and then it would just fade out of existence mid-fight. And I'm like, that's really weird. Why? How is that a thing?
Well, I think the one we saw definitely wasn't a fade out of existence.
Oh yeah, we saw one just straight up.
Yeah, just disappear.
But it's like that they intentionally just have like a timeout, and it's like, if you don't finish this fight, there's like, that's fine, I'll just fade away. It's really weird. There's definitely some rough edges around this thing, and it's and I had a few of those like Digital Foundry reported like just general weird pauses, and the game would just stop for a few seconds and then kick off again. I've seen that a good few more times since I've been flying around in vehicles more often. But yeah, no, it never quite felt like my Halo. Like, it's good to have Halo back, but it's like, it's not
right.
It's not the peak. Not even close, really.
But
it's nice for them to have tried something different, but they needed to do more. What's also interesting, I found, is like there's like a good quarter of the map that you never go to. There's a lot of landmass that isn't used, and it's like DLC. Hey guys, there's DLC story coming.
Land there exist before the DLC, right?
I don't know. Like there's odd little landmarks about the place that just don't have a purpose, and it's like, okay, maybe that's just decorative, but there's some that are quite prominent, or some that you notice being there quite, more frequently than others. Like these weird little triangle structures of like 3, 4, and pillars, just that look similar looking things around the map, and it's like, well, they don't do anything. What's that about? Or I think I've mentioned before, like you get the propaganda towers that you can destroy, but then there's the banished like Atriox towers that have no purpose whatsoever, and there are certain bits of the map that you can just go to, and that's all that was there. There'd be an Atriox tower there and nothing else of interest, and it's like, why? What is this? There must be something more to this, or something that was cut, or something that you're planning for DLC to add to the map. What is this?
But so is that your suspicion that there's space there? To fill in.
I think it's been rumored they're going to do some story DLC. I don't know if they've outright said it, that that's the plan, but I think it's. I think that would make sense.
They've got to finish putting in the co-op first.
They have got to finish putting in co-op. Yeah. Apparently, you can glitch your way into a split screen mode. Like there's
Weird.
It's sort of there but not finished. Like, but there's a way of triggering it. So there's that. I've been putting a lot of time into the multiplayer though. I've been putting quite a lot of time into it. I had a fairly lengthy session with Kips and Jam playing.
Oh, cool.
Just doing.
It seems like this is the saving grace, isn't it? Even if it's a different game, really.
Almost completely. But the multiplayer is really good. I've been playing a lot of it because it's been another week of the samurai event, so you can get some samurai armor and bits for it. Even if you're a free to play user and haven't bought the battle pass and things like that, you can still do the challenges to earn this samurai gear. So I've been doing that. It's one fallback is that it forces you into Fiesta mode to do that stuff, which is Slayer, but everyone spawns with random weapons. So, having a balanced game in Fiesta is not a thing, because it really is random what you spawn with. You could spawn with the plasma pistol and the disruptor, which are the two worst guns in the game, and just be like,
okay,
and be like, I'm in trouble now. Or you'll spawn with rockets and a hammer, and you'll be like, yeah, I'm all right. It's not a balanced experience, and it's a bit weird that they chose to make that that every challenge for this thing has to be done in Fiesta mode. But
That sounds like they wanted to make it easy, though.
Yeah.
Because you can't really fail. I mean, it will be annoying in some cases because it's
some
not really skill based and it will just be a grind.
And some of the challenges are win Fiesta matches, which is kind of like against that.
Well, yeah, but that is just like then it doesn't
It'll happen eventually.
Yeah, it doesn't matter
guess.
about your skill.
Yeah,
it will just eventually happen because of the randomness.
But that will happen at any skill level in this game, right? Like, I'm sure it's doing some behind.
Assuming the balance is working. Yes,
I assume it's doing behind the scenes skillage. True skill.
But why is it still behind the scenes? Give us back Halo 2.
Yeah, I know. There's still only one ranked mode in this, and it's like that no sensors battle rifles style. You still get shields, so it's not like full on SWAT, but it's a very specific set of rules for ranked mode. Yeah, and it's kind of weird that they don't just do a ranked Slayer or rank everything. Why not?
Yeah, it's the Rocket League problem.
I mean, like the problem with like ranking systems is they do introduce, like a lot of games try and introduce party restrictions to be like, oh, you can't be too spread out because we want a group people together.
But that's why they had those specific playlists for that in Halo 2 as well. It's just like, this is the non-party restricted ranks playlist.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, you just have every playlist have a casual and a ranked mode, right?
Yeah,
and play where you can. Or you just loosen up a bit and be all like, yeah, whatever, it's ranked mode, but you can bring in a broad spectrum and we'll try and balance it out.
Wow. But that did kind of become the problem of Halo 2 as well, wasn't it? Where it's just like, sometimes the matchmaking would be like struggling to find an appropriate set of people to jam together.
I mean, it's always going to struggle if you allow guest accounts in split screen, right? Which is what Halo 2 did. And, yeah, you could have 4 people playing on a single Xbox, and like one of them will be amazing, and the other 3 will be middling to poor, and it will be a really weird match as a result. But I kind of think that's fine. Anyway, Halo's hella good.
Multiplayer.
Yeah. Halo Infinite multiplayer is hella good. We need to get you an Xbox X so you can get in there.
Are you just waiting for the split screen co-op single player?
Well, I mean, obviously.
We
have to do that.
Yeah.
We'll totally
We've done
do
all
that.
the other games.
Well, we haven't done Halo 5 because it's like...
No, well, yeah, obviously. We haven't done Halo 5 because you can't.
Yeah. We need
You still can't.
They're never going to patch in split screen into Halo 5. Like, it's an online co-op game by design, and so they're never going to do it. I think they've previously just come out and said it's like, no, the engine would be impossible to work with like this. It's not designed for this.
Well, that was their original excuse, but
yeah,
everyone thought it was bullshit at the time.
I mean, it might not have been nonsense simply because it was one of the first games. It was 343's first game to use dynamic resolution scaling, I think, and that technology was kind of new at the time.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe there's some trouble getting split screen to work when you're doing fancy stuff around res. And it was their first game to run at 60 as well, so maybe they had a hard time finding the boundary for split screen to make that work.
Makes sense.
Yeah. There's probably good technical reasons. Or that thing was a tire fire under the hood, you know?
Yeah, that's also definitely possible.
So the other thing I've been sinking a ludicrous amount of time into is Yakuza 4.
Naturally.
Because it's that time of year, baby.
Yeah. So where are we in what Yakuza games you've played and in the timeline and like what's going on?
So I've mostly been playing them I've been playing them sequentially, right? Like, so I've been playing...
Oh, you have, yeah.
Like in terms of the story.
Or...
Yeah, so I did Kiwami 1, Kiwami 2, 3 remaster, and now 4 remaster.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, in terms of the tech, we're really talking. This is the 4th in the series, but I've played stuff that's towards the end of the series in terms of tech. Like the Kiwami games are not just. Then Kiwami 1 in particular is nothing. Is very is very much not like what Yakuza 1 was on the PS2.
Actually was, right.
Yeah.
So what's the oldest game tech-wise you've played? Is 3...
3 is the oldest, yeah.
Is the oldest, right. So this should be an improvement on 3, but not as tech-wise as...
Yeah, but I think this was where 3 and 4 were probably where the studio was starting to get into its, like, we can churn these out every year. Because Yakuza 4 really isn't much of an improvement on 3 in terms of its looks or its... I mean, there are certain things that feel nicer, like just walking around feels a bit nicer now than, like, little things, like just little bits of polish here and there. Because that was strange going from, like, Kiwami 2, then back to 3. Just the way Kiryu moved, like, with the left stick, just walking around, felt weirdly clunky. And it's like, yeah, okay, I guess we have come a long way in character control since early PS3 days. And it's and so yeah, there are minor improvements here and there. But what's really strange about Yakuza 4 is, like, there seems to be a tonal shift. Like, the game is occasionally goofy, and there is, like, as it always has been. But so far, the main tone of the game has been far more serious. And,
right.
And
than 1, 2, and 3.
Than all of them I've played so far. Yeah, this is the most serious of the lot so far. It's like I haven't really come across too much levity yet. And maybe that's because the game also, in a change to normal, so far I haven't played as Kiryu. I'm like...
Right.
Because he is obviously the most biggest source of levity in all of those games.
Kiryu's amazing. He's just a fantastic character. Like, he's just like he can be serious, he can be deep, he can be ridiculously over melodramatic, and he can be funny. Like, he is every character in every game. He's great.
He's every woman.
He's every woman. But yeah, so I'm like 15 or more hours into this thing, and I've played as 3 different characters so far. None of them are Kiryu. One of them has beaten up Kiryu. So one of the characters, I actually had to fight Kiryu, which has never happened before. So yeah, the series is trying to...
So Kiryu has appeared.
He's there, yeah.
You can't play as him.
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm pretty certain he's the 4th playable character, but like...
gotta be, right?
But I've not yet had him. So it's like, so far, like, it's been a different experience. Like, all 3 of the characters I've played have their own fighting style, which is nice. They all level up individually. They all have their own item pools, all completely separate from one another. So when it gets to the point in the story where it's swapping to another character, it's been kind of a moment, right? It's like you're almost going back to square one and starting again.
Right.
With this character. Like, and the game's got to try and introduce this character to you, explain what they're up to, explain what they're about, and do it all from scratch each time. Which I don't think it's done a bad job of, but it's like... it has the slight problem where maybe the first character is approaching Kiryu's level of appeal, but Saejima and Tanimura haven't really clicked with me yet. They all have their own things, they all have their own abilities, and all have their own quirks, and that extends to what sub-stories they have access to and what mini games they can partake in. That all changes depending on which character you have, and what areas of the map you can visit. In fact, there are certain characters that can only get to certain areas, and maybe that'll loosen up at some point. I'm not sure, but right now it's all fairly strict. So as I say, the game's doing quite a lot different. Majima's been in it, as you might expect, but even Majima's been toned down. He's not been mental. He's been very serious. He's been very, like, I wouldn't say broody, that's not the word, but like a bit gloomy about the scenario we find ourselves in. And it's like, what's going on here? Was this written by a completely different team? But then, just to lighten your mood, the revelation system is back. So it's like, which is possibly my favorite thing from Yakuza 3, where you can just see something happening in the world, look at it, and if it, like, so you'll see some NPCs perhaps doing an animation that you've not really seen before, something a little out of place, and you're like, well, just have a little look. And then you look at it and zoom in, and then your character goes, Orewa? and then you're like, and then you're thrust into like a cutscene that plays out, and you press buttons to keep up with it and take photos of it or do stuff with it, depending on which character you are. And then at the end of it, they have a revelation of some kind. But like they've played, so that's back, and those are great because they're like off the scenes that play out are often really stupid and like the most goofy things, but like all of the characters have their revelations in different ways, which is fantastic. Like, so the first guy, Akiyama, does it in the same way as Kiryu did in 3. So he whips out his phone, Orewa, takes a photo of it, and then writes a blog post to himself or something. And then Saijima, he has the same thing. He looks at it and says Orewa because he's a big guy. So he says it in a deeper, slower voice. And then at the end of his revelation, he somehow a wood block appears from nowhere, and he chisels a statue of what he's just seen.
Of course, naturally. How else are you going to record what happened?
And it's a statue of the move he's learned to do, and it's just amazing.
And so there's an individual statue for each of these encounters.
Yeah, for each of the moves he's that is revealed to him. And the third guy just does a really rapid notebook, so it's like really dramatic notebook sketch. He's like, but even he does Orewa, and it's like, so great. As long as you keep that, I'm happy.
If they've already used Kiryu's one from the last game, what's he going to do now?
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm really interested. What is Kiryu's excuse for having revelations? He's not going to just whip out his phone and take a photo now.
I mean, he might.
He might, but I love it. I love that. There's like, as I say, there's just hints of the goofiness this time round. Like it's there, it's under the surface, but it's not really at the fore. And I'm hoping it, like, as I say, as the game goes on, and perhaps it will expand out. Maybe when I get to the point where I've seen all 4 characters, and maybe they come together, and I can start switching between them, if that ever becomes a thing. Maybe that's when the game starts to open up and things become a bit more accessible, or I can find all the dumb stuff. So other returning things, the hostess game from 3 is back, and that's the bad one. It's the one I don't like because it's real tedious and like hostess management. Like it's not the best. That one, Kiwami 1 and 2 did that way better. Kiwami 2's in fact is really quite decent. They've brought back the chase system from Yakuza 3, where you're either running away from or running towards someone, except they've improved that no end by having the person you're chasing draw a little trail on the floor. So if the camera screws up and you can't quite see where they've gone, it's like you can at least you at least have some sort of thread you can follow for a bit. But they've also added the ability to pick up stuff from the ground and throw it at them, which is kind of fun. But people can throw things at you as well, so you've got to listen for audio cues and dodge at the right time, which slows you down, but slows you down less than it would if you got hit by the thing. So there's a, or you can swerve if you're lucky and just dodge it that way. So the chase system is back, but improved. I mean, some of the classics are back. The batting cage is still there. Bowling's still there. The UFO catchers are still there if you really want to get engage with all that stuff. Mahjong's still there. All of the games pretty much you'd expect are still there. But I think a few of them have had subtle little improvements. My favourite one that they've added is another little management game called Fighter Maker, which Saijima can get involved with, where he gets randomly roped into managing a dojo, which has no apprentices. Like it's some guy who's just really enthusiastic about fighting, but he can't fight himself, so he hasn't been unable to train anyone.
The martial art that you practice on the street, is it then that you're?
No, it doesn't really matter. You're just training. It's like an MMA kind of thing.
Okay.
You're fighting. You're training people to fight in the Colosseum, which is like the random fight arena that's been in every game. And
right.
So yeah, but the way it structures up is it's saying, right, you've got 50 turns to train this guy up to be the champion of a tournament. Doesn't matter what tournament, they just have to win a tournament. And you're then spending your turns like, okay, you're basically picking a menu out to be like, okay, do this training, then this training, then this training, and then do a special action at the end. And you're just planning that out turn by turn to be like, okay, now do this, now do this. And it affects their stamina, it affects their stats, it will affect their mood and their trust. And you've got to balance that all out and keep that going so they steadily improve and eventually win the tournament. And I actually think that's quite well made. And there's some story roped in around that's all right. I would say it's not been. As I say, I'm yet to get to the goofy stuff in that, and I reckon that will keep going and be quite interesting. So I did a few, the first 2 apprentices of that, and I know there's at least a third, and I think it gets harder each time you do it. But and it's it seems all right. That's one of the best new mini game additions I've come across so far.
Sweet.
So yeah, it's Yakuza, but currently not as I've known it. Like they've taken a couple of risks. I'm not sure they're paying off yet, but we'll see. We shall see.
In terms of the tone and stuff.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's not making
and the multiple characters.
Yeah, and other than Fighter Maker, it's not really given me a reason to engage in any of the mini games or side activities. They're just kind of there. I probably will do a few of them to see if I can just, there's a lot of achievements tied to the mini games, like just for doing something relatively simple in the mini games, not for being like an ace of them.
You don't have to.
No.
Yeah.
But like you probably have to play all of them at least once to to get some stuff. So I'll do a few of those anyway.
Sounds good. And it's just, I don't know, it's enjoyable to see how they differ from each other.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, I haven't got to Tanimura's specific mini game yet, so I haven't seen what his is, and I haven't seen Kiryu's probably going to have his own mini games that he can. They
have their own specific games.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, like only Saejima can do Fighter Maker, for instance, because he's the one that got collared by the dojo.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Akiyama's the one that does the hostess game because he owns a club. Tanimura's got an investigation thing going that I think might just be a sub story, but it's not really a mini game, but it's like a slightly meatier subplot going on. And he gets random extra events, like he can hear things over a police scanner, and then goes like, "Oh, there's a disturbance over here." It's like, right, okay, I can go deal with that. Anyway, cool. Yakuza 4.
So how many Yakuza games are there? Like, in not counting remakes, like what's after 4?
So I'm going to split them into 3 different eras. In the original era, there's 7, running from Yakuza 1 to Yakuza 6 with a 0 thrown in.
Right, with 0 being a
0 is a prequel that came between 5 and 6.
Yeah, okay.
And that's ignoring whether you want to go play Yakuza 1 and 2 without the Kiwami editions.
Yeah, and you didn't play 0.
I haven't played 0 yet. No, I'm going to play 0. I have got 0. Like I've got gifted that a few years ago, and it's like I will play that in sequence. So I'll finish 5, and then I'll go back and do 0, and then finish off this era of games with 6. But then there's also There's the 2 other eras, I suppose, of Kamurocho, and like one of them has only just started, which is Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is the RPG, the new series basically, the RPG-based Yakuza game. And there's also the Judgment series, which has 2 games in it. So yeah, spin-offs.
Over the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm probably going to be like behind by at least a few years because the studio does work. They put one game out every year. Like last year's was Judgment 2, Lost to Judgment, and then the year before that was Yakuza Like a Dragon, and then the year before that was Judgment, I think, and then the year before that was Yakuza 6. They just keep going. They crank these out. And they're not small games.
Yeah.
Essence of Sega.
Keeping Sega alive.
Keeping Sega alive. They put Kiryu in that monkey ball game.
Yeah, they did.
It's like if they do another Sonic and All Stars Racing, Kiryu had better be in it.
Yeah, wasn't he already?
No, they put
they
put the closest you get. I think it was like you got Ryu from Shenmue and Akira from Virtua Fighter.
Right,
they were their 2 token dudes.
And Football Manager, obviously.
Oh, yeah, Football Manager. I forgot he was in the PC version. Yeah, that was pretty funny. I'm gonna have to play that game again. Transformed was excellent.
Speaking of funny things that I just remember, there's one more thing about Pokemon Diamond and Pearl that I vaguely remembered because I'm sure I probably actually talked about it on the podcast many, many years ago at this point. But like, I remembered that there was some kind of weird. Well, I remembered it as being like a meme. Like one of the trainers that you talk to had some kind of weird meme in his text or whatever. So I remembered that it was there, and I also actually had remembered kind of where it was, like the vague area that this trainer was in. So I got to that again, and I was like, oh yeah, but it wasn't as much of a meme as I remembered, because it's actually like a kind of obscure reference, I guess.
Oh yeah.
But it's weirdly a reference to like something awful.
Oh no.
Which is like, okay, that's some translator on this game obviously had been involved with something awful for some reason.
Oh, that's funny.
But yes, it's just the random artist trainer that you fight, and then he was like, oh, I've been inspired, I'm going to create a new artwork of this battle, and it's going to be called... Yeah, pretty much. And it's going to be called My Pokemon is Fight, which is a reference... Which is a reference to, as far as I understand it, because I don't actually know this reference that well, but that's one of the contributors, I guess you'd call it, of Something Awful, made a book called My Tank is Fight. So that's what that's referencing. But I was like, I came back to that because I had remembered it as being a meme, and I was like, I thought it was going to be something fairly obvious, but it was actually kind of obscure. And then I was like, I guess I would have known that at the time as well, because I was aware of Something Awful even back then, in 2007.
That's so good.
Well, yeah, because of Goonswarm, I presume.
Well, yeah. I mean, back then it was probably more relevant.
Is Goonswarm still a thing?
In Eve, yes. Certainly.
Oh, right, yeah.
The endless battle of Goonswarm versus the Reddit one, whatever that's called.
Oh,
Test Alliance, please ignore.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yes, that was weird. It's just such a some guy who worked on the translation slipped that one in there kind of reference.
That's so
nice one.
Yeah, so My Tank is Fight is apparently a sort of, it's an examination of 20 real inventions from World War II that never saw the light of day.
Yes, I mean, that's what I gathered from going back to the Something Awful post about it, but I was like, is this like a serious book or a comedy book? And I can't really tell.
Right.
I mean, the title implies...
With a comedy title.
Yeah. The title implies one thing, but it doesn't appear to be saying that it's particularly funny.
That's great.
Although those modified tanks for D-Day were called funnies, weren't they?
Yeah, they were.
Hobart's funnies.
Yes.
Hobart. Anyway, is that what you've been playing then, Rob?
Yeah, pretty much. I meant to talk about it in last podcast. I played through. I forget the damn title of this thing. What Remains of Edith Finch?
Right, yeah, the walking simulator. Right. The original walking simulator.
One of the early walking sims, yeah. I mean, it's a little more than a walking sim. That is the bulk of the game. You're walking around, look at things, listen to narration. I mean, Dear Esther, I guess, is the original, right?
I think this came out before Dear Esther.
No. The Edith Finch is a long time after.
Yeah, the other way around.
Dear Esther was like Source Engine, you know.
Yes, that was probably nearly the original.
Yeah. Yeah, this was like, I guess, mid-generation of the last console gen. It tells a relatively bleak tale about how this entire family has died over the years or gone missing or something like that. It's not I wouldn't say it's a happy experience, but it's told through like weird cutaways that are in the style of the person's psyche. Like she's reading the diaries of these people. Yeah, kinda, but like, yeah.
But not nearly as dramatic.
Yeah, so the first one you do is like a child who's like having a dream about being different monsters and eating everything and things like that. So you're playing through vaguely. This kid's imagination of you being a cat for a while, chasing a bird, and then being a shark, and then being a sea monster, and things like that, and or the particularly interesting one of a cannery worker who is in his mind living out this RPG fantasy life while he's doing this incredibly boring job. Like he's constructing this world in his mind and how that goes. And it's like that's a particularly well done section, I have to say, that the cannery guy. That's worth checking out. But yeah, it was. I think. Edith Finch, I think, was one of those games that was actually kind of lauded as this kind of is the walking simulator, right? This is the zenith almost of this is what these games should be. And I can't say I was blown away by it. It's fairly well made, but it didn't. Yeah, it didn't really hit me in the feels. I guess is what it was going for.
I just Googled, you know how Google gives you those lists sometimes or sets of things like the cast for a movie? And I Googled walking simulator game and it's come up with like a set and it says Firewatch, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, Gone Home, Dear Esther, What Remains of Edith Finch, The Stanley Parable, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, Death Stranding, which is hilarious because it is a walking simulator.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah,
I just thought that was funny.
that is pretty true. It's
maybe
a
someone put that as a joke
with a little bit of combat.
There's also a game called Walking Simulator with the same font as like Farm Simulator.
Of course.
Oh, and it looks like it looks like Death Stranding, so it must be.
Based on the hills of Iceland.
A post Death Stranding ripoff, you mean?
Yeah. It's obviously
in the vein of
parody.
What do you call it? The totally accurate battle simulator style, where they also did. What was their Fortnite clone called? I forgot.
Oh, man. Yeah, I know what you mean. I can't remember it.
But yes, same concept. Parody the real game.
Yeah.
But sometimes do it better than the real game.
Sometimes.
I've forgotten about Everyone Goes to the Rapture. That is very much a walking simulator because there's not a lot. There isn't really even.
It's the same people that made the first one.
Dear Esther,
isn't it?
Chinese Room, I think.
Yeah, I like Firewatch. That was good.
Yeah, does that even count? Is that a walking simulator?
Kind of. You don't do.
I suppose you don't really do anything.
It's like an adventure.
Yeah, it's like the Stanley Parable. Maybe is less of a walking simulator than those other ones. Stanley Parable is. I mean, you don't really do much apart from walk, but it's more like a choice simulator.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
that's the illusion of choice simulator.
Yeah.
And a platformer, I guess, and
a little bit, yeah.
It sort of falls into that not very well populated category of subversion games, I guess, like Frog Fractions and whatever that pony game is that I actually want to play at some point. What's that called? Anyway, where there's like a pony runner, but it's being invaded by Satan, and you have to program against Satan. That sounds kind of fun.
Yeah, clever meta games. Cleverer than the Matrix Resurrections.
Yes. But anyway, Edith Finch. It was only 2-ish hours long. So it was worth checking out, is what I would say to that. It was definitely worth going through. I think it's the same developers that made Unfinished Swan.
Right.
I think. And Unfinished Swan is one of those games I've always wanted to check out as well, but never got around to. So it was worth a quick jaunt, but yeah, I don't think I saw what other people saw, but then I guess I'm not necessarily that arty, so. And that's me. That is everything I've been playing. I guess Zach and I did a bit of Derg and did a bit of Rocket League, but
Hyrule Warriors
and Hyrule Warriors, of course. We got the next character, the monk. Spoilers.
Yeah. Spoilers for the DLC of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. Oh right. What can you play as him?
Well, he's the last boss.
Oh
yeah.
That's why I said he should have been the DLC for this game.
I see.
Well, I'm I've got nothing new but just still playing Breath of the Wild, so I'll probably get to the DLC eventually. I've just got to.
Did you
the
already
deserts.
do the DLC at some point, or is this the first time you're
Yeah, I
going
did the DLC before. Oh, no, I've done the DLC before. I never bothered to do the whole, power up the Master Sword.
Right, the
Infinite
other
Dungeon
DLC,
thing.
yes.
Yeah, I didn't do that, but I did do the actual proper DLC.
Get
with
the motorbike.
new shines and the motorbike. Yeah, not that I ever used that because I just put the game down as soon as I unlocked it.
Yes.
And also because it's dumb. kind of.
I guess you've never tried Master Quest or hard mode or whatever it is. Or...
No, that's a Zach thing. Yeah, where there's like just bokoblins flying through the sky on
balloons
and stuff like that. Yeah, no, I haven't done that. But no, I thought I'd play it again in the normal way rather than in the insane way. But yeah, it's cool that exists, obviously.
Because this is the year of Breath of the Wild unnamed.
Well,
sequel.
that's it.
Theoretically, yes.
Well, theoretically, yeah. So it should be done in time for that. And also the other damn game, Red Dead 2. Yeah.
We mentioned this last time. This is going to be a hell of a year for Nintendo, theoretically. Like Breath of the Wild 2, Splatoon 3, Kirby to a lesser extent.
I think maybe Kirby to a greater extent than Splatoon almost.
You reckon?
I don't know how much. I really have no idea how popular Splatoon actually is in the rating of Nintendo products.
It's relatively popular. I've definitely met multiple kids of different parents who have played Splatoon, if that makes sense. I do come across it. It's pretty big. Kid
friendly.
Well, it might have outbigged Kirby just because of the age of Kirby.
Well,
right?
yeah, but in this situation, I feel like Kirby might be bigger just because it's essentially new almost.
Yeah, maybe.
At this point of the generation.
Yeah.
It just seems like a new Mario Odyssey-esque game, except with this different character.
Bayonetta 3.
That barely counts as being Nintendo.
Come on! Bayonetta 3. It's going to be a good year for Switch. It's going to be a good year.
And then Nintendo will screw it up by trying to release a new SKU of the Switch.
Well, when's Metroid Prime 4? Is that? I suppose they restarted.
They've never said.
We don't know.
Probably not this year. We have to
infinitely
assume.
long.
Yeah, and I think the assumption is don't expect it this year.
I mean,
Reckon
expect
Mario
to
Kart
see
9.
it this year, for God's sake.
Maybe, yeah.
They better.
It's probably, how long has it been since they said they're basically starting again?
More than a year, right?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe a year and a half.
Because we were expecting it last E3 when they showed Dread instead.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So, a year ahead of games. I know that the pandemic has caused a backlog, so all the games that should have come out last year, like God of War and Horizon and stuff, are going to come out as well.
Yes.
In addition. So,
yeah, that God of War 2.
Yeah.
Problem is I don't want to play that until I've got a PS5. It's like, and you can't get it.
Well, they'll have to get some more supply of those damn things. I'll tell you what, I remembered that, I'm not that interested in those Horizon games. Although I saw you playing the last one, looked fine at the end there.
Well enough made, yeah.
Well enough. But I realised that the voice actor for the Aloy is actually Birch, right?
Yeah.
And then that triggered me to just go back and watch all Hey Ash, What You Play It, which is really funny. And I've forgotten how funny those are. Yeah, Hey Ash is really good. I hadn't realised. I must have fallen off it because they've still made them for years. But obviously most of them are from most of them are from 10 years ago. But there are some other ones. There are some Hey Ash, What You Playing on YouTube. So I'm going to go. But I've forgotten how funny those are. And the dad as well. Brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. Because I knew that she'd gone and was a writer on Adventure Time, which makes total sense. Mm-hmm. But now, obviously, she's doing more video game voice acting.
The Birch brother, whose name I can't remember, is still about doing writing because he writes for Borderlands, I think.
Well, he did back then, I think. Yeah. So, But, if you've never seen Hey Ash, What You're Playing, that's an old semi-old internet thing that is really, really good.
Scapegoat 2.
Yeah.
Best game ever made, according to her.
Right, I think that's a podcast.
That's a podcast.
That's a podcast. Thank you for joining us. Check out our YouTube channel for Ocarina of Time Let's Play, which was progressing. And
When we're not incredibly confused.
when we're not confused about what's going on.
You can discover the confusion next week, hopefully.
Yeah,
haven't-
maybe
I haven't
we'll figure out
posted the
how to
last
even
episode
get
we've done
into the next.
Yeah, but last
Can we
episode
get-
was the confusion.
Yeah, but now we don't know how to get into the next dungeon. So,
Oh,
double
you
confused,
mean the
but we'll
confusion of
figure
the
it out.
forest temple?
Yes, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah,
The
okay.
confusion.
Yeah, you can watch that one. Yeah, because I called it Forest of Confusion. I see where you're going from now.
Yeah. So check out that video.
Zach's on brand.
It was and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another Saladcast. So catch you then. Bye.